Side. The cultured man rolled his eyes dramatically. The notion that this family would sincerely apologize was as far-fetched as believing a sow could climb a tree. Compensation? Ridiculous. Though they earned money through live streaming, they remained exceedingly stingy. Time and again, he had overheard them arguing next door. The elderly woman chastising the stout woman for her poor financial decisions, lamenting, "Why can't you just stand there and wait until the fish are dead before buying? Dead fish is considerably cheaper than live fish, and freshly deceased ones are equally as fresh. Truly, one must not be so careless with life. However, I purchased squid. Squid is inherently dead and frozen. It was thawed and transported here for sale. What? They dare to sell it at such a high price while it is dead? Is this not a blatant ripoff? You are simply foolish, incapable of bargaining, treated as an easy target. You do not feel the weight of your own money, do you?" This is more or less the essence of what was said. In any case, it was quite absurd. Time and again, the elderly lady would impart her frugal wisdom to her daughter-in-law. Meanwhile, the notoriously fierce, overweight woman appeared entirely submissive before the elderly matriarch, speaking in hushed tones. Of course, the true head of the household was the 300-pound man, yet he never intervened when the elderly lady bullied his daughter-in-law, thus tacitly endorsing her behavior. When it comes to being stingy, he is the epitome of frugality, reluctant even to treat his own mother to a fresh meal, only allowing her expired food when it has spoiled. Being so miserly towards both his mother and daughter-in-law, how could he possibly be willing to voluntarily cover medical expenses? As he pondered this, a unique notification chimed from his phone, indicating that someone in the group chat had sent a red envelope. He hastily pulled out his phone, only to find the community group chat inundated with messages, a flurry of remarks such as "no way," and "so much money." The refined man was utterly perplexed. He clicked the mention button in the top right corner, and the message promptly directed him to a specific transfer addressed to him. The transfer amount was 20,000 yuan, with a note reading for the medical expenses and apology for 1202. Room 1202 was his designated number, and in this community group, each resident had altered their notes to reflect their building and apartment numbers. Thus, the hefty man could accurately locate him in the group and initiate a personalized transfer. The chat exploded with excitement. Even though everyone in the group came from relatively affluent households, it was rare to witness such a substantial transfer initiated, particularly because the sender was notorious for being miserly and cruel. While he dared to offer this money, the refined man felt he could not accept it. Several homeowners who had added him as a friend began to send him private messages. What happened? Did he barge into your home and assault you, then offer you 20,000 yuan for medical expenses? Do not accept the money just yet. Hurry and call the police. Do not agree to a settlement. You must stand your ground. They should face justice. If necessary, I will lend you 20,000 yuan, but do not accept their money. The refined man was completely bewildered. In response to the concern from the other homeowners, he could only reply one by one. I was not assaulted. I merely got a scratch from his wife this afternoon. I do not know what has gotten into him. He suddenly came to my doorstep, kneeling and bowing, insisting on compensating me. I cannot accept this money. Let us wait for the property management and security to arrive. However, when the property management and security hurriedly arrived at the 12th floor, they found no trace of the peculiar family. The refined man opened the door and, with a puzzled expression, informed the property management. They left before departing. They said they were in a hurry and that many others were waiting for him to apologize. He could not linger here and urged me to accept the money swiftly. The property management's demeanor shifted as well, sensing that this family had undergone a bizarre transformation, as if possessed. The property management swiftly sent a message in the group chat, inquiring, "Has anyone seen the family in Unit 1201? Have they come to speak with you?" Soon, residents from the 11th floor began to respond. "I think I saw them at my door just now. I heard someone knocking. But I don't have a camera at my door, so I can't be sure it's them. It's definitely them. I have a smart doorbell, and it's them for sure. Please don't open the door. I'm so frightened. I just saw that man forcing his wife to kneel and bow. He even slapped her." Upon hearing this, the security personnel immediately split into two groups. One rushed down the stairs, while the other took the elevator. They quickly reached the 11th floor, where they could hear a heated argument between the heavy-set man and his wife from a distance. "No, absolutely not. You want to compensate every resident in the building with 10,000 each? Are you out of your mind?" The woman, accustomed to being a pampered wife and never defying her beloved husband, found her affection for money surpassing her love for him when she realized he intended to transfer funds to other residents in the group chat, who said, "I would give every household 10,000 as compensation." The man's booming voice echoed in the corridor. The woman's expression softened slightly, only to hear her husband continue. "Some residents have been more significantly affected and should receive 20,000 each. For instance, our neighbors, those above and below us, and the families whose doors have been disturbed by our son, as well as those on the first and second floors who have been terrified by snakes and cockroaches. Even 20,000 is too little." A thunderbolt struck. The heavy-set woman staggered, her body teetering as if about to collapse onto the elderly lady behind her. Little did she know, the elderly lady fell even faster, going limp and collapsing to the ground. Fortunately, the security guard descended quickly and rushed over to catch the elderly woman before she fell, preventing a potentially unfortunate incident at someone else's doorstep. Once she regained her composure, the elderly lady gaped in silence for a moment before finally bursting into tears. Oh heavens, my son has been possessed. Why on earth would he want to distribute our family money to outsiders? The daughter-in-law also collapsed to the ground, beating her thighs and crying out, "This is outrageous. I don't care what kind of demon has possessed my husband. Get out of him immediately, no matter what live streaming theme you've been assigned. I forbid you from giving away our money. This is marital property. It is my money. You cannot give it away." The two women, who had never seen eye to eye, surprisingly united in a common front to oppose the suddenly deranged husband. "Son, you must persuade your father. Don't let him give away our money." The frightened child beside them was already trembling, stammering, "Daddy, please don't give it away. I'm scared." Yet how could the little bear persuade the big bear? His father had over 30 years of experience being a bear. This household was ruled by his decree. "Stop your incessant whining. All the things you do have brought me nothing but shame. I am a man, a strong and honorable one. How could I have such selfish and miserly women as a mother and a wife? Moreover, you little rascal, had I known you would turn out this way, I would not have secretly torn the wedding gift in an attempt to save on the dowry." Suddenly, as his wife wept, her voice faltered. "What? My pregnancy was not an accident?" Seizing the moment while she was in shock, the plump man swept his paw across and snatched the phone back, his fingers swiftly darting across the screen. In the blink of an eye, several exclusive transfers appeared in the community group. Each transfer amounted to 10,000 yuan, designated for residents 1102 to 1106. As for the occupant directly beneath him in 1101, they received a transfer of 20,000 yuan. All the remarks read, "Apology fee." In an instant, the entire community group erupted once more. Members tagged the property management, inquiring if they had located this peculiar family, what was happening, and why they were suddenly showering money in the group. The property management, having witnessed the entire affair with mixed emotions, could only film a short video and post it in the group, captioned, "Although we are unaware of what transpired, it seems that the male head of household from 1201 has indeed experienced a profound change of heart, going door to door with his family to apologize." The group members deliberated and eventually discerned the crux of the matter. "Oh my, going door to door, does that mean what I think it means? So, does that mean I will receive something as well? I live on the 10th floor, I should be included, right? I live on the 1st floor. I have suffered the most from their family's mischief. If I do not receive an apology fee, I truly shall not forgive him." Although every household in the group was relatively well off, let us be honest, that was a guaranteed 10,000 yuan. Who would turn down such an amount? Moreover, this money represented not merely currency, but an opportunity to extract something from a notoriously stingy individual. Everyone wished to take a share. The property management did not respond, but the plump man, upon seeing the inquiries, generously replied with a voice message, "Do not worry, everyone will receive. I will visit each household, ensuring at least 3 bows and 10,000 yuan as an apology fee." Upon hearing this, his wife and mother-in-law rolled their eyes in exasperation. Under the witness of the property management and security, this bizarre family traversed the 2 buildings of the community, visiting each household to distribute money. His wife and mother-in-law, despite their struggle to remain conscious, clung to the hope of persuading him to abandon this course of action. Ultimately, they accompanied him throughout, yet their efforts to dissuade him proved futile. Were he to forego just 1 serving of clay pot rice or 1 painfully repentant little chili, it would not have escalated to such extremes. In the course of a single night, nearly 2 million yuan was squandered without a second thought. For a family that would not splurge on quality ingredients even for a food broadcast, this was akin to sacrificing half their existence. The wife and mother-in-law leaned on each other, pinching each other as acupoints to endure this lengthy journey of giving away money. As they approached the last household, they breathed a sigh of relief, casting almost pleading glances. "Dear husband, son, once the apologies are made, let us return swiftly." At this moment, the plump woman's composure began to unravel, though it had not completely shattered. She contemplated that her husband still possessed an account with a following of millions. As long as there was an account, income would continue to flow in unceasingly. This evening's live stream, which ostensibly seemed to be a loss-making endeavor, proved to be extraordinarily impactful. Countless homeowners, driven by curiosity, gathered to witness the spectacle in its entirety. Even the typically indifferent homeowners could not resist the allure of the event, suggesting that the online viewership would undoubtedly be even greater, as netizens inherently delight in such spectacles. It is quite possible that by the end of the night, the received donations could surpass the money given away. Furthermore, they are not without contingency plans. Once the initial excitement wanes, they can visit each household to solicit funds, employing a dramatic display to ensure they reclaim their money. Should the homeowners feel aggrieved and take to the internet to expose them, it would merely generate another wave of attention. After all, even negative publicity is still publicity. The corpulent woman pondered this increasingly, yet one matter eluded her understanding. What kind of phone was her husband using for the live stream? The device in his hand was entirely occupied with transactions, and she had not seen him holding a camera. Could it possibly be a pinhole camera? Before she could resolve her thoughts, her husband made a sudden move. He shared his live streaming account in the community group. Accompanied by the message, "I would appreciate your assistance." Just as everyone assumed he would ask for increased followers, he surprised them with his next statement: "Please help by reporting this." The group members were left bewildered. They anticipated an explanation from the hefty man. Yet he bypassed that and commenced the live stream directly. As the stream began, a multitude of fans flooded in, only to find that this session did not feature unusual culinary delights, which left many expressing their dissatisfaction. "What is this? If there's no food, why are we even watching this live stream? It's a waste of everyone's time." "Exactly. Last time you promised a live stream featuring wild snails, and I was looking forward to it for ages." Observing the barrage of complaints and discussions from his fans, the hefty man displayed neither flattery nor appeasement. Instead, he furrowed his brow disapprovingly. "Allow me to offer a piece of advice," he addressed the growing audience in the live stream. "Do not squander your finite lives on such trivial and bizarre eating broadcasts. This type of content is devoid of nutritional value, contributes nothing to society, and promotes detrimental values." After a flurry of question marks appeared in the comments, one dissatisfied fan retorted, "What does this mean? Now you're preaching? We followed you to see some entertainment. And if you're not going to deliver, we might just unfollow you." This remark, intended as a threat, unexpectedly elicited laughter from the hefty man, as if he had found a kindred spirit. All right, go ahead and unfollow. Please do not waste any more time watching my live stream." He continued, "By the way, before you unfollow, could you kindly take a moment to report this live stream? Thank you." Every viewer, whether online or among the onlookers, was left stunned by this perplexing declaration. Surely, he could not be asking for people to unfollow and report him. Was he attempting to provoke a rebellious response from the viewers to gain followers in reverse? However, the risk was substantial. Was he not concerned that the fans might genuinely report him and lead to the closure of his account? In that case, he would lose both his wife and his supporters. Soon, netizens witnessed the unraveling of the overweight man. With each refresh, his follower count plummeted by the thousands. Despite the dire situation, he remained unrepentant, even laughing and encouraging. Yes, exactly. Unfollow me quickly, and don't forget to report as well. Thank you." A healthy societal atmosphere relies on collective effort. After a brief lapse in judgment, his wife finally recognized the gravity of the situation. "Wait a minute. The live stream has just begun. Surely the prior act of sending money wasn't done without being broadcasted? Was that money given in vain? And what kind of absurdity is it to urge people to unfollow and report? If the live stream is shut down, getting it reinstated will be a monumental challenge." In a frenzy, she lunged at her husband, shouting in the live stream, "No, don't unfollow. He has lost his mind tonight. Do not heed his nonsense. Please, do not report." The wife's delicate account boasted only a few thousand followers, while her husband's eating broadcast account had millions, serving as the true source of their income. Should that account vanish, their family would regress into obscurity. "Stop this. Why are you hindering me tonight? Don't you feel any remorse? You've cast such a detrimental influence on society. Our family is a blight upon it. Be quiet. You've gone mad. You truly have. Apologize to the fans at once. Do not report. Do not report." Amidst the tumultuous exchange, her phone vibrated, revealing a call from the liaison of their live stream guild. This guild functioned as a management agency within the live streaming realm. For a prominent streamer like her husband, it was through the guild that a tailored plan for fame was crafted, requiring substantial investment to elevate him. With the call coming in, could it be that they had noticed the unusual turn of events in the live stream, seeking to reprimand him? As anticipated, once connected, the voice on the other end erupted in furious rebuke. "Have you lost your mind? How dare you incite fans to unfollow and report? This account is company property. Do you truly believe it belongs to you? I don't care how much cat urine you've consumed tonight. You must apologize to the fans immediately." The woman hurriedly conveyed her husband's apologies, yet he defiantly raised his stout neck, sneering derisively. "I haven't drunk any alcohol. I'm completely sober. More lucid than ever. Your guild is a malignant tumor in this industry, contributing nothing to society, merely churning out sensationalist accounts like mine, corrupting societal morals. Don't think for a second I'm unaware. Your guild, under the guise of rewarding its streamers, is engaging in money laundering. You can't withstand scrutiny. I will report you for money laundering and tax evasion. You should manage your own affairs first, scoundrels." His entire family was hearing such radical rhetoric for the first time. It was utterly bizarre. The overweight man, once a notorious figure in their household, now seemed possessed, behaving in an uncharacteristically righteous manner. This possession, perhaps, was that of a judge from the underworld, for how else could he exude such moral indignation? The elderly woman struggled to comprehend the intricacies of the live streaming world, yet she managed to endure. However, her daughter-in-law, fully aware of the stakes, could no longer withstand the stress and fainted with a roll of her eyes. $1 million streamer, not too grand nor too insignificant, owed his comfortable life entirely to the guild behind him. But now, it was all over. He had offended the guild, and there would be no more good days ahead. With the woman no longer in his way, the rotund man felt emboldened to act without restraint. True to his earlier claims, he unhesitatingly dialed the police. "Hello, officer, I wish to report my live streaming guild for money laundering and tax evasion. I have relevant chat records. How should I send them to you?" Should I come to the police station in person? Splendid, I'll be there shortly. With that, the man turned and strode purposefully towards the precinct. The effects of the spicy pepper would surely allow him to divulge everything he knew while at the station. The following day, Xiaolon learned about the previous night's events from a customer who had come to buy food. The million-dollar streamer had suddenly developed a conscience, urging netizens to report his own streaming room, prostrating himself before his neighbors in apology, and rushing to the police station to report the guild's money laundering, each detail more astonishing than the last. Xiaolon had initially intended to punish this peculiar family and expose them to ridicule, but unexpectedly, it also unveiled the money laundering operations of the live streaming guild. Investigating this matter would require considerable effort. Until the criminals were formally apprehended and confessed, Xiaolan's system would not issue any notifications. Nevertheless, this did not hinder her enjoyment of the unfolding drama. On this day, the number of customers buying food had tripled compared to the previous day, resembling an explosive surge. Perhaps they had misunderstood Xiaolan's earlier apology, or perhaps the renowned streamer had unwittingly elevated her profile. Many were drawn to her establishment out of curiosity. With so many people queuing for food, including several from the upscale neighborhood across the street, idle chatter turned to gossip. Some were industry insiders who revealed the dark underbelly of the streaming world. Xiaolon listened intently. The relationship between streaming guilds and streamers was akin to that between talent agencies and celebrities. Nowadays, very few individual streamers gained fame solely through their own merits. Most achieved success only after signing with a guild and undergoing meticulous packaging. Besides promoting the streamers, managing operations, and providing professional training, guilds also played a significant role in showering streamers with extravagant gifts, thus generating false traffic through paid viewers. By bestowing lavish gifts during live streams, a streamer could secure platform recommendations and entice ordinary viewers to follow suit. Over time, this artificial popularity would transform into genuine acclaim. Of course, the money from the gifts was returned to the guild, and the viewers' contributions were split on a 70-30 basis. Such practices were essentially the standard operating procedure within the industry. However, while legitimate guilds derive their income from lawful means, some unscrupulous ones seized the opportunity to launder money for overseas criminal syndicates involved in gambling and fraud under the guise of live streaming. Under the pretext of live streaming gift-giving, vast sums of money are funneled to streamers, who subsequently return a significant portion of these funds, thereby laundering illicit profits. In such circumstances, it is evident that the streamers are complicit, as they must cooperate in transferring the money. It is perplexing, however, that the corpulent man dared to report the guild, akin to a confession of sorts. The audience listened with rapt attention, as their previous doubts were elucidated. It is no wonder that a streamer with merely 100,000 followers could afford a residence in a luxury community, alongside $2 million in cash for reparations. It is, after all, ill-gotten gains. The swiftest paths to wealth are indeed inscribed within the annals of criminal law. Such is the grim reality. At this juncture, it is certain that this family will not meet a favorable fate, should the guild be found culpable of money laundering or tax evasion. The complicit streamers would also suffer consequences, facing imprisonment and the obligation to return all illicit earnings, potentially even at a doubled rate. Conversely, if the guild emerges unscathed, the streamer will have made an enemy of the guild, ensuring a bleak future, perhaps even the confiscation of their account. An individual, amidst the discourse, suddenly pondered, if the illicit gains are to be confiscated, mustn't the reparations paid to the entire community also be returned? An eavesdropper could not resist interjecting. Merely the confiscation of illicit gains is at play. After streaming for such an extensive period, it is improbable that all their income is derived from illegal sources. They themselves have annotated the payments as reparations and medical expenses. If we truly wish to evade repayment, it is plausible to argue that the money spent was legitimate income. Another resident from the upscale community chimed in. A mere 10,000 is not substantial to me. I shall repay it, but reclaiming it will not be so simple. This family has caused us considerable strife. I initially believed them merely morally corrupt, but it appears they are also legally dubious. I shall demand they come and bow an apology once more. While it is often said that one should not dismantle a person's dignity, when faced with such base conduct, it is hard not to tread upon it. This family, having sunk so low, invites disdain from all who observe. Residents who typically exchanged no pleasantries now found themselves engaged in conversation, united by shared gossip, oblivious to the fading barriers between individuals and the hearts that separate them. Ding. 2 B-level criminals have been apprehended. The capture is successful. Reward, 100,000 yuan and 1,000 points. Continue the commendable efforts. Ding. 5 C-level criminals have been apprehended. The capture is successful. Reward, 100,000 yuan and 1,000 points. Continue the commendable efforts. Ding. 10 D-level criminals have been apprehended. The capture is successful. Reward, 50,000 yuan and 500 points. Continue the commendable efforts. As the workday concluded, Xiaolon received notification of the rewards from the system. This operation dismantled the live streaming guild behind the scenes. resulting in the capture of a total of 17 criminals, including the implicated streamers. Not all streamers under the guild's auspices are coerced into aiding in money laundering. The guild selectively chooses individuals, typically targeting those with larger followings who exhibit a lack of integrity. They possess a keen eye for selecting the unscrupulous. It was unexpected that the corpulent man would become their downfall. The young man appeared to lack integrity, astonishingly willing to self-incriminate through his own report. It was indeed perplexing. Not only was the guild baffled, but even the rotund man himself was left in a state of confusion upon regaining his senses. In the police station, he slapped his own face in frustration, insisting that he had spoken in error and imploring the officers not to take him seriously. The officers regarded him with expressions akin to those one might reserve for a fool. Given that evidence had already been submitted and the opposing party had confessed to the criminal acts, was he truly certain he wished to retract his statement at this juncture? If he refrained from doing so, he could still claim leniency by surrendering the ill-gotten gains, which would demonstrate a cooperative attitude and potentially result in a lighter sentence. The rotund man fell silent, swallowing his words as if they were bitter pills. He decided against changing his testimony. That very day, his residence was listed for sale at a bargain price, in a desperate attempt to raise funds to return the stolen money. It was reported that the agent nearly retched upon entering the house for a viewing. Some individuals had suddenly come into wealth, yet their lifestyles remained unchanged, still as disheveled as ever. An elderly woman was hoarding refuse within her home, neglecting to manage it. The leftover milk and soda in various bottles had spoiled, emitting strange odors. The agent insisted they clean the house before attempting to sell it, or else prospective buyers would be deterred. Upon learning that this family was relocating, the neighborhood chat group buzzed with excitement, engaging in a night-long game of red envelope exchanges. The lucky recipient of the envelopes would then distribute 200 yuan for others to seize, valuing the joy of the occasion over the monetary amount. Truly a celebration for all. Neighborly bonds were strengthened as they discussed the clay pot rice available at the entrance. Observing the interest of many in the community but recognizing the lack of time to queue, a collective proposal emerged to pool resources for purchasing the dish. Local shopping centers often saw university and college students seeking part-time work, making them the ideal candidates for the task. Soon, a message circulated in the part-time job group seeking individuals to procure clay pot rice, igniting a flurry of activity. Typically, these students earned around 80 yuan for an 8-hour shift distributing flyers or serving as sales assistants. In contrast, they would receive 40 yuan per order for merely delivering the dish to the entrance of the adjacent community. With 2 opportunities to purchase each day, limited to 2 servings per person, each student could potentially earn up to 160 yuan daily. It was an exceptionally lucrative arrangement. Eager and naive, the university's students enthusiastically accepted the offer, only to return to campus with their bellies full yet empty-handed. Upon returning, they lamented in the part-time job group, "Do not come. For heaven's sake. This is a scam. A blatant scam. They didn't mention how delectable the clay pot rice was. I just earned 40 yuan for running an errand, only to turn around and spend 60 yuan on a portion. If it weren't for the purchase limit, I could have bought another to take home. Indeed, this is a trap. Earn money and spend it on the spot, leaving nothing to take home." However, their warnings bore little fruit, as many believed they were merely sowing discord to eliminate competition. To be fair, they did pay for the delivery. They didn't deceive you. If you don't wish to buy, then simply don't. Indeed, when one lacks willpower, it is easy to accuse others of deceit. How ironic it is to spend 60 yuan on a meal while claiming to be financially strained. It appears that the affluent are merely indulging in life's experiences. I purchased a couple of steamed buns, nibbling on them as I stood in line, content in the knowledge that as long as I was satiated, the allure of sumptuous dishes would hold no sway over me. Thus, I would save money. Before long, the second wave of naive university students eagerly rushed to sacrifice their wallets, only to return shortly thereafter, clutching their empty purses in resignation. I apologize for doubting you. That temptation is truly beyond the resistance of ordinary souls. I suspect that what I consumed was not merely a bun, but rather a fist, for it felt as though it were relentlessly battering my stomach. It has been years since I have experienced the pangs of hunger so severe that they cause pain. The moment the lid of the clay pot was lifted, who could resist salivating? It seemed as though one had to have overcome an addiction to endure such temptation. Chapter 140. Pumpkin millet porridge and ground meat egg custard. It was sheer torment. Someone audibly crunching on the crispy rice crust in my presence felt as if they were gnawing on my very skull. The group chat had made matters abundantly clear. Yet the university students, brimming with boundless energy and curiosity, insisted on persistently stepping forward to offer their aid. Xiaolan, observing the daily influx of customers, felt an overwhelming pressure. It was becoming unbearable. At this rate, he would be worn down before the perpetrator was even apprehended. Unable to contain himself, he reached out to Ouyang to inquire about any developments in the case. He held little hope, yet was taken aback when Ouyang responded affirmatively. "Yes. I was just about to contact you. We have made significant progress with our undercover operations recently. I was eager to update you, but have been too pressed for time." Xiaolan's heart leapt. Has the presumed deceased Liang Gaofei returned? Ouyang confirmed. "Indeed, we have discovered leads suggesting his whereabouts." Do you recall the bizarre incident involving that family releasing cockroaches a few days ago? We had an undercover agent embedded among the residents. The agent witnessed the mistress of the suspect nearly fall in fright at the sight of the cockroaches. What caught our attention was her agility. She did not instinctively protect her abdomen when she stumbled, appearing far from the demeanor of a pregnant woman, more akin to that of a man. Xiaolan repeated the revelation. Astonished. Are you suggesting that this mistress is, in fact, Liang Gaofei in disguise? Ouyang Yu's voice crackled with frustration over the phone. Precisely. The hunter became the hunted, oblivious to the fact that he had been operating right under our noses. Each time he ventured out, he donned long hair, a wide-brimmed hat, sunglasses, and a mask. We assumed he sought to maintain a low profile, unaware that he was concealing his true identity. Yet Xiaolan remained incredulous. Surely, he could not maintain this charade indefinitely. I mean, did no one ever see him remove his mask? Were your observations so lax? Although he held back further criticism, he could not help but feel that they had been rather inept, believing their surveillance to be stringent only to discover otherwise. However, it soon dawned on Xiaolan that he had misconstrued their efforts. Of course, we have seen him remove his mask, which is precisely why we did not suspect him. The mistress is pregnant and requires regular checkups. We have arranged for surveillance at the hospital. Having seen the mistress remove her mask and reviewed her medical records and fetal images at various intervals, we have no doubt about her identity. In retrospect, it is highly probable that the genuine mistress underwent the examinations, while Liang Gaofei resided at home. They likely seized the opportunity to swap identities. The more Xiaolan listened, the more he found the absurdity tinged with a hint of reason. A criminal with a vivid imagination encounters a bold and meticulous police officer. Truly, the battle of wits is a remarkable one. When this peculiar family went door to door to apologize, those living on the 8th floor did not answer, despite the presence of occupants at that time. Conversely, most residents below the 10th floor opened their doors to witness the commotion, further intensifying our suspicions. In summary, we have now approximately determined Liang Gaofei's whereabouts and are poised for apprehension. However, we also wish to ensnare his associates and unravel an entire web of espionage. I appreciate your continued surveillance for a few more days, particularly monitoring the mistress's checkup reports, which have already indicated signs of preterm labor. Recently, they consulted a doctor regarding an early cesarean section, hinting at the possibility of an early delivery, which may prompt action in the coming days. Since receiving Ouyang Yu's alert, Xiaolan has been particularly attentive to the comings and goings of the neighboring community. However, he has yet to catch a glimpse of Liang Gaofei. Instead, he has heard news about Hu Lai and LV Dong's performance in physical assessments. It is said that they performed exceptionally well, ranking among the top in the second batch of participants. Although they did not break records like Xiaolan, their improvement from previously low standings is nonetheless impressive. Fortunately, we managed to escape quickly. One cannot fathom how terrifying they were that day. They pinned us down to assess our muscles, even suggesting that they would take us for dissection and research, interrogating us about the use of performance-enhancing drugs. What a bunch of sore losers. Could they not simply acknowledge our significant progress? Listening to the two of them revel in their secret satisfaction while simultaneously complaining made Xiaolan break into a nervous sweat. Although Hu Lai and Li Dong did not consume performance-enhancing drugs, they did partake of a health-boosting little apple. Prior to their return for the physical assessment, Xiaolan prepared a pot of fruit tea, discreetly infusing it with his special ingredient. To mask the peculiar color of the little apple, he added a black frozen pear. As it turned out, Xiaolan's efforts at concealment were entirely unnecessary. Whatever he offered, those three consumed without hesitation. However, the effects of the little apple were remarkably pronounced. The three essentially shared a single health-boosting little apple, and its impact on them was far more substantial than on Xiaolan. It seems their innate physical condition surpassed Xiaolan's, allowing the little apple to enhance their abilities even more. So much so that it raised suspicions of drug use. It appears that in the future, I must be cautious about sharing such items. Even if shared, it must be done gradually, otherwise, being subjected to dissection and research would be quite unfortunate. A new day dawns, bringing with it a fresh wave of eager customers. Xiaolan and Hu Lai, along with their companion, are bustling about, their feet barely touching the ground. Suddenly, a phone call interrupts their flurry of activity, summoning Xiaolan away. What? You are hospitalized. The frail voice on the other end belongs to old Deng. I have food poisoning and am currently in the hospital. Could you possibly come and see me? It would be best if you could bring some food. Xiaolan is at a loss for words. After an extensive preamble, the crux of the matter comes at the end. What happened? How did he get poisoned? The breakfast was prepared by Xiaolan, and they all consumed the same fare. He himself is fine, so how could old Deng have fallen ill? The voice on the other end of the line lowered in unmistakable guilt. I was tired of the braised potatoes and cabbage, so I thought I'd try braising some green beans. I assumed they were cooked, but alas, they were not. I took a few bites, and they tasted delightful, but by noon, I was experiencing severe vomiting and diarrhea. Xiaolan felt a cold sweat break out. This man certainly knows how to court disaster. He managed to land himself in the hospital over the simplest of dishes. Seriously? Didn't you live in the countryside for a spell? Are you unaware that undercooked green beans can be toxic? I know. I thought they smelled so good that they must be cooked, but who knew they were not. Ah, I see. This fellow simply couldn't resist temptation, and one more second of waiting would have surely been his undoing. Xiaolon, you will come to see me, won't you? At my age, I can't order takeout, and I lack the strength to go to the hospital cafeteria for food. You wouldn't want to see me go hungry, would you? Xiaolon glanced at his current workload. The yellow braised chicken was already prepared and could be packaged up right away. As for the clay pot rice, due to the limited number of stoves and clay pots, it cannot be rushed. Hu Lai and Lu Dong can manage the situation adequately on their own. Given this, it would not be a problem for Xiaolon to step away for a while. Fine, I will prepare some congee to bring to you. By the way, does your son know about this? Xiaolon needed to clarify. Otherwise, director and might mistakenly believe that old Deng was hospitalized due to the food Xiaolon prepared, which would be quite unfortunate. He knows. He is lying in the bed next to mine. He also suffered from food poisoning and ended up in the hospital. The silence from Xiaolon was deafening, and it took him a moment to regain his voice. You didn't happen to give him your undercooked green beans, did you? Of course, good things are meant to be shared. I care for my son as well. Care for your son? More like you've led him into a trap. Xiaolon was too exasperated to continue his banter and simply stated, I will arrive in no less than half an hour, so wait for me. After hanging up, Xiaolon surveyed the ingredients and utensils at hand. A patient suffering from food poisoning should consume light fare, ideally something that could replenish vitamins. He decided to prepare 2 portions of simple minced meat and egg custard alongside pumpkin and millet congee to take along. With limited ingredients and tools, there was no chef's knife, only kitchen scissors. The minced meat consisted solely of pre-marinated chicken, as there was no pork available. He would make do. Xiaolon cracked 4 eggs into a bowl, whisking them with chopsticks before adding a pinch of salt and pepper. He then incorporated 15 times the amount of warm water, continuing to stir until the seasonings dissolved completely, transforming the mixture into a smooth egg liquid. Warm water is key, compared to cold water. It allows the egg to steam more quickly and results in a silkier texture. Many would stop at this stage and directly place it in the steamer, which is the standard for home cooking. If one were to embark on the venture of opening a shop, there lies the potential for refinement and further enhancement. To achieve a superior taste and a more aesthetically pleasing appearance, it is essential to utilize a sieve to filter out the foam. After filtering, before commencing the steaming process, it is necessary to delicately remove any bubbles with a toothpick. Subsequently, the lid must be secured to prevent steam from entering, thereby ensuring that the egg mixture, once cooked, attains a mirror-like smoothness, resembling a delightful pudding in texture. While waiting for the eggs to steam, Xiaolon began to prepare the minced meat. Using the only pair of kitchen scissors at his disposal, he meticulously chopped the chicken thigh into fine pieces. The chicken had already been marinated, rendering it ready for immediate cooking. Sautéing the minced meat enhances its aroma. However, some may find it easier to simply add the minced meat directly into the egg mixture for steaming. This method, though convenient, requires careful attention to proportions. An excess of meat may result in undercooked flesh paired with overly firm steamed eggs. Xiaolon has never been one to shy away from effort. He would never sacrifice quality for the sake of convenience. Despite the rudimentary conditions, he took the time to sauté the minced meat briefly, using the rendered chicken fat in lieu of sesame oil. When the eggs began to set, he artfully arranged the fragrant minced meat atop the surface, turning off the heat to let it rest for an additional 5 minutes. This crucial step allows the essence of the meat to permeate the steamed eggs while simultaneously eliminating any fishy odor. Upon completion, a sprinkle of chopped green onions served as the finishing touch, akin to the final stroke of a masterful painting, adorning the golden steamed eggs with vibrant green accents. Xiaolon's dexterity was astonishing. Patrons scarcely had time to discern the dish he had crafted before he swiftly covered it, readying it for takeout. As for the pumpkin millet porridge, its preparation was more straightforward. While the eggs were steaming, Xiaolon adeptly multitasked to create this dish as well. Renowned for its digestive benefits, millet cooks effortlessly, especially when utilizing a clay pot, which enhances the cooking process. To achieve a thick consistency, one must refrain from adding cold water. Instead, millet should be introduced once the water reaches a boil. This technique prevents the millet from sticking to the bottom and eliminates the need for stirring. For a richer texture, a small amount of oats can be added, imparting a subtle grainy aroma. Pumpkin, however, is less forgiving when it comes to cooking. It is advisable to cut it into chunks and place it in the pot to boil in advance. During this time, any foam should be skimmed off, and the lid can be placed on top until it reaches the desired tenderness. Xiaolon executed the preparation of both dishes with impeccable precision, akin to a finely tuned instrument. Even customers lined up at the front could scarcely catch a glimpse of his actions. It was only in the fleeting moment when the lid of the clay pot was lifted that they recognized a completely new dish. Though both dishes shared a golden hue, the creation before them was neither braised chicken nor clay pot rice. The latter boasts a more intense flavor, reminiscent of molten gold under the scorching sun, akin to dazzling fireworks. In contrast, the former exudes a subtle, gentle aroma, akin to the soft glow of the moon or a gentle breeze. When Xiaolon fully removed the lid from the pumpkin millet porridge, preparing to pour it into a disposable container, patrons caught a casual glimpse inside, instantly captivated. The shimmering pools of golden rice oil evoked images of blooming yellow rose petals, reminiscent of swirling layers of a flowing skirt. Only fresh millet can yield such vibrant rice oil, rich in nutrients. During particularly challenging times, this oil could even serve as a nourishing supplement for infants. In a bid to economize, some ordinary establishments often resort to adding baking soda or starch to millet porridge, attempting to disguise its true quality. Yet, the counterfeit remains merely that, an imitation that cannot be transformed into authenticity. The patrons in the front could not help but swallow hard. Their curiosity piqued as they inquired, "Boss, are you introducing a new dish? Is this millet porridge? I would like a serving." Xiaolon, engrossed in her tasks, was suddenly aware of the piercing gazes of a dozen pairs of eyes upon her. She had thought her modest endeavor would go unnoticed, considering the simplicity of her fare, yet it had caught their attention. With a polite smile, she responded, "I apologize, this is for a sick friend of mine, whom I intend to visit at the hospital shortly." In that moment, a wave of envy washed over the onlookers. For reasons unknown, they found themselves thinking that, in comparison to this pumpkin millet porridge, claypot rice seemed rather unappetizing. What was lacking in the claypot rice? Perhaps it was the absence of a unique fondness. Xiaolon resembled a sorceress as she meticulously added seasonings to the porridge, akin to concocting a magical elixir. This was a potion that, once tasted, bestowed happiness and joy, capable of healing all ailments. The ingredients of this elixir extended beyond mere millet and pumpkin. It also required a segment of warm winter sunlight, a bloom of fiery orange, a wisp of frosty steam, and a heart full of heartfelt wishes. Moreover, it demanded unparalleled attention to detail, a singular affection, and the envy of many. Only through this amalgamation could one craft a pot of millet porridge imbued with such enchantment. Amidst the envious glances of the crowd, Xiaolon departed on her electric scooter, carrying the packaged millet porridge and steamed egg custard. Chapter 141. With such a celestial subordinate, the boss must be secretly delighted. The customers left behind expressed their frustration with clenched teeth. How enviable. A friend of the boss must be incredibly fortunate. I wonder if the boss is in need of friends. Should I fall ill just to savor his porridge? In the glaring spotlight of favoritism, they suddenly found the typical domineering hero of novels less appealing. The chef held a distinct allure, for he truly prepared the meals. The elderly gentleman resided in a hospital near his home, located in the city center, and it was the finest hospital in all of Fengling City. After hanging up the phone, he noticed his son had been roused from sleep, unsure of how much of the conversation he had overheard. His son remarked with a hint of annoyance, "Xiaolon is currently on a mission. Please do not trouble him so often." The old man chuckled softly to himself. He mused that this was not a nuisance, but rather an opportunity for Xiaolon to shine before his superiors. Given Xiaolan's disposition, he would never intentionally seek to curry favor with his boss. Instead, he would likely take a detour, much like a student instinctively avoiding a teacher. As for his son, he was a rather timid fellow, and the closer their relationship, the more he seemed to shy away. Yet the irony was that Xiaolon was hardly a relative. He was not truly his godfather, yet the son was still wary. A few days prior, when he learned that Xiaolon would be at home for dinner, he immediately declared he would be working late and would not return. At times, an excessive pursuit of equity can inadvertently plunge those around us into inequity. When opportunities for connection are not provided, individuals may go to great lengths to avoid awkwardness, which may lead to Xiaolon being subtly undermined. Enough of the trivialities. If you possess the fortitude, refrain from eating. The director might feign stubbornness in refusing sustenance, yet his stomach had already betrayed him, responding before his mouth could utter a word. The prolonged, melodious growl of his belly prompted him to turn his head in embarrassment, silencing further conversation. Curiously, they initially believed their hunger to be negligible. However, upon calling Xiaolon, and as soon as the call ended, their stomachs erupted in a cacophony of protests. As if they were aware that a feast was on its way, fervently preparing for a grand welcoming ceremony, with their bellies resounding like drums, fireworks crackling, and colorful banners fluttering amidst a sea of anticipation. Before long, the old man's keen nose twitched in the air, and he abruptly lifted his head. "She's here. Xiaolon has arrived." Director and sense of smell was not as acute. He merely cast a doubtful glance in his direction. "Is that true? All I can detect is the scent of disinfectant." The next moment, the door swung open, and Xiaolon entered, carrying takeout boxes. "I'm 10 minutes late. I didn't expect such heavy traffic, but thankfully I rode my electric bike." Upon her entrance, she did not bring in the chill of the outside air, but rather a warm, fragrant aroma of rice. "You've worked hard." Director and wished to rise from his bed to assist her, but his hand was still tethered to an N4 drip, and Xiaolon promptly halted his movement. "You both just rest. I'll take care of it." With slight awkwardness, Xiaolon adjusted the head of the hospital bed and placed pillows behind the two men. She then unfolded the medical dining table and arranged the takeout boxes neatly. "I've prepared some simple porridge and steamed eggs. Once you recover, I'll let you taste the clay pot rice." The old man chuckled heartily, beaming with pride at Xiaolon. "Look at this child. She is so capable." With a spark in her eyes and strength in her hands, clearly, she is a talent worth nurturing. With such a remarkable subordinate, a manager can indeed find joy. He turned to his son. "Wouldn't you agree?" Director and was already eagerly sipping the porridge. Even the coldest heart can be softened by the warmth of this comforting millet porridge. He could only mumble in agreement. Seizing the moment while his son was enraptured by the aroma, the old man continued to persuade. One day, when you have time, come home for a meal. And we can all gather for a hot pot. Work is work, but life must also include normal social interactions. One should cultivate friendships, wouldn't you say? Hearing the word hot pot ignited Director N's irritation, yet recalling the delightful scent from that day, his stomach betrayed him once more. The old man beamed. Eager to facilitate connections between Xiao Lan and his son, yet Director N had already discerned his intentions. Enough of your chatter. Is your stomach not hungry? If it isn't, I can help you drink the porridge later. Upon hearing his son attempt to claim his porridge, the old man quickly wrapped his arms around it protectively. Who said I'm not hungry? You ungrateful child. How dare you covet my portion? The hospital room fell into a momentary silence, save for the eager sounds of swallowing from the elder and the younger. Two individuals suffered from bean pod poisoning and underwent induced vomiting. The acid reflux scorched their esophagus and throat, leaving them in considerable discomfort. The doctor advised them to drink copious amounts of water to detoxify. However, as the water trickled down their throats, they distinctly felt swelling in their larynx, which was quite distressing. Yet, as they savored the pumpkin millet porridge and steamed minced meat egg brought by Xiao Lan, the uncomfortable sensations gradually dissipated without their notice. The steamed egg served as a gentle remedy. Cooked to an exquisite tenderness, it melted seamlessly upon contact, sliding effortlessly down the throat. As it traversed the inflamed area, the soft and elastic texture of the egg provided a soothing massage, offering comfort to the ailing region. It even took a moment to embrace the dangling uvula, reassuring it that all would soon be well. This, perhaps, epitomizes the essence of dietary therapy. The rapid secretion of dopamine allowed them to forget their physical discomfort, while the inherent warmth of the food produced a temporary numbing effect. The ailing body, in its weakened state, greedily sought the nourishment that food provided. A second bowl of pumpkin millet porridge followed, its rich dietary fiber and protein akin to a divine intervention, a savior for the gastrointestinal mucosa. If one were to liken the esophagus, scorched by gastric acid, to a tattered paper lantern riddled with holes, then the pumpkin millet porridge resembled a thick glue, capable of mending the lantern and restoring it to its former glory. With the protection of the millet porridge, they could indulge in the minced chicken atop the steamed egg without fear of its irregular shape irritating the esophagus, allowing them to fully appreciate its rich meaty aroma. It was exquisite, truly exquisite. In a moment of physical fragility, encountering a meal that was both considerate and harmonious felt like pure bliss. Noticing that the time was nearing for departure, Xiao Lan began to tidy up. Suddenly, a distinctive alert chimed from his phone. This sound indicated that the snack cart had sent an unusual surveillance clip to his device, signaling that a criminal had entered its detection range. Xiao Lan hastily retrieved his phone for a closer look, but was disappointed to see that the surveillance had captured merely a vehicle. The car emerged from the green scenic Huading community and swiftly passed by Xiao Lan's stall without stopping. Regrettably, Xiao Lan was not near the snack cart to retrieve the criminal record of the vehicle's occupant. Fortunately, the snack cart had documented the license plate number, and he intended to ask Ouyang Yu to investigate it. As he opened the chat interface with Ouyang Yu, a message from the latter arrived promptly. The informant reports that Liang Gaofei, disguised as a pregnant woman, seems to have left, although he isn't entirely certain. Did you spot any suspicious individuals at the entrance? Xiao Lan immediately sent a screenshot of the license plate number. Was he in this vehicle? Ouyang Yu replied with palpable excitement. Yes. That's the car. He has indeed left. I will arrange for someone to follow him immediately. However, it's peculiar. We had coordinated with the private hospital he frequently visits. And if he had an appointment for a prenatal checkup, the doctor would have notified us right away. Yet, he has made no appointment this time, Xiao Lan mused. Could he be planning to switch hospitals? The other party did not respond, perhaps preoccupied with contacting someone else. A short while later, Ouyang Yu called Xiao Lan directly. As soon as the call connected, the other party said, Xiao Lan. We have examined the surveillance footage from the private hospital and confirmed that Liang Gaofei consistently meets his mistress in the women's restroom of the obstetrics and gynecology department, where they exchange identities. His mistress always arrives at the hospital first, waiting for him in the restroom stall. There are no cameras in the women's restroom, and Liang Gaofei may be communicating with someone using the phone his mistress brought. Previously, we were unaware of this, but now we know. We must deploy personnel to the women's restroom to stake out the area. We might capture crucial information. Liang Gaofei is currently stuck in traffic, heading towards one of 10 hospitals, and our female officers can take electric scooters to position themselves at the hospital in advance. However, there's a problem. The number of female officers is insufficient. Could you please consult with the East City branch to see if they can temporarily assign a few female officers to us? Xiao Lan was infected by the urgency in the other party's voice and quickly replied, All right, I will consult immediately. After hanging up, she turned her gaze towards Director N, who was lying on the hospital bed. Who could possibly convey information faster than she could, other than directly addressing him? Within moments, she discreetly whispered the situation to Director N. He promptly approved the request and asked old Lu for assistance in making arrangements. Xiaolan was about to share this good news with Ouyang Yu when she opened WeChat and discovered a screenshot of a map sent to her. It listed the names of hospitals where Liang Gaofei might be headed, with the city hospital prominently included. Suddenly, Xiaolan pondered the possibility that the mistress had not yet entered the women's restroom and had just arrived at the hospital. If she were to stake out near the women's restroom in the obstetrics and gynecology department now, she might just encounter the suspect's mistress arriving. A surge of adventurous impulse coursed through her, prompting Xiaolan to step outside while mentally refreshing her points exchange store. Each refresh consumed 100 points, which was a painful expense. However, the immersive thrill of the operation made her forget everything else. Abruptly, she paused, her gaze drawn to the newly added items in the points exchange store, her eyes shining with excitement. The chameleon konjac delight. Konjac, a wondrous and ancient food, not only serves as an excellent aid for fat reduction but also excels in transforming into various forms, such as jelly, tofu, or even tripe. When mixed with the gelatin from pig trotters, it can create a rudimentary disguise material. Thus, the function of this new product was clear: it was intended for disguise. Coupled with the voice-altering mint candy of many voices that Xiaolan had previously purchased, she could easily disguise herself as a woman, allowing her to loiter near the women's restroom without arousing suspicion. The obstetrics and gynecology lobby was filled with men accompanying their wives for checkups, and Xiaolan could blend in seamlessly. However, there were certain restricted areas where men were prohibited. As she surveyed the crowd, she contemplated the specific application of the chameleon konjac delight. She needed to vividly visualize the face she intended to transform into. The more detailed the better. It could be the face of a real person or an imaginary one. However, to be prudent, it was best to have a real-life reference, lest she risk a failed transformation, ending up with a distorted and grotesque visage. Body characteristics can be contemplated casually, without delving into excessive specifics, as templates are available for reference. Xiaolan finds great satisfaction in the convenience of konjac jelly. His only grievance lies in its disposability. Its consumption rate is indeed excessive. Unlike the mint candy of alternate life, which requires purchasing a new piece for each tonal variation, yet allows for the storage of tones for future use without the need to consume candy again. At 500 points per konjac jelly, the price may seem affordable, but it essentially necessitates capturing at least one B-grade criminal to avoid a loss. It is indeed a challenging endeavor. Xiaolan is no longer in want of money. Rather, he is in dire need of points, living a rather frugal existence. He has reason to suspect that the system is intentionally designed this way, perhaps anticipating the introduction of a feature that allows him to exchange currency for points. No. The money that has entered his pocket shall not be relinquished. With a mindset of prudent spending and saving, Xiaolan refrains from hastily utilizing the items at hand and instead meticulously examines the video clips of his mistress. The clips, sent by Ouyang Yu, capture a remarkably clear frontal view, having been recorded by police informants who tracked her at a private hospital. The method by which the mistress and Liang Gaofei exchanged identities is not particularly sophisticated. It primarily exploits the brain's phenomenon of inattentional blindness. The brain tends to remember distinct features while overlooking the mundane. For instance, if shown a photograph of an ordinary-looking stranger, one would find it quite difficult to identify that individual from 100 images. However, should that stranger bear a prominent mole, one would undoubtedly remember the mole, thus accurately pinpointing the sole individual among 100 who bears it. Yet, is the person you identify truly the one from the photograph? It is of little consequence. As long as the mole's location aligns, that suffices. In a similar vein, Liang Gaofei and his mistress donned identical maternity outfits, sported matching burgundy wigs, and shared similar physiques. Liang Gaofei entered the restroom wearing a mask, while the mistress emerged after removing hers. This simple sleight of hand, combined with their matching physical characteristics, leads people to subconsciously conflate the two as the same individual. In truth, if one were to scrutinize further, the two possess differing heights. Liang Gaofei deliberately walked with bent legs beneath the long skirt to diminish his height, resulting in an inevitably awkward gait. Yet, despite the risk, the odds of success were favorable. Had Liang Gaofei not been startled by a cockroach that day, inadvertently exposing himself, he might have eluded the watchful eyes of so many informants. What Xiaolan must now do is eliminate all distractions of distinct features and focus on memorizing the contours of the mistress's brows and her walking habits. If that woman indeed came to this hospital, her current appearance should encompass 1. A nearly 9-month pregnant belly. 2. Possibly donning a wig and mask to obscure her prior presence at the hospital. 3. Perhaps dressed in a long coat to conceal her attire underneath, or carrying a bag containing the clothing exchanged after their meeting. Chapter 142. Locking eyes with a suspect in WeChat. Ouyang Yu continuously updates on Liang Gaofei's whereabouts. He has now passed one hospital without pausing. There are 9 targets remaining. According to the software's prediction, he is 10 minutes away from the nearest hospital, 15 minutes from the traditional Chinese medicine hospital, 23 minutes from the maternity and child hospital, and 45 minutes from the city hospital. Please arrange for the female officer to arrive promptly. The male officer followed suit, ready to assist at the hospital. Xiaolan, having read the message, replied that she was already at the city hospital. Upon looking up, she spotted a pregnant woman with a prominent belly. The woman perfectly matched the 3 conditions Xiao Lan had previously envisioned, accompanied by an elderly woman. It was unclear whether she was her mother or a hired caregiver, but she was supporting the pregnant woman as they made their way toward the restroom. Seizing the opportunity, Xiao Lan observed the woman's gait. She had been watching the video for quite some time, but had failed to discern any distinctive features. The pregnant woman's manner of walking was rather uniform. Many instinctive protective gestures to support the belly were similar. However, her physique was indeed a match. Examining her facial features, Xiao Lan noted that her eyebrows were meticulously groomed. Unsure if they were drawn on or tattooed. Pregnant women typically refrain from makeup for the sake of their child's health, suggesting that her eyebrows might have been tattooed, though that was of little consequence now. Quickly averting her gaze, Xiao Lan pulled out her phone to compare a frontal screenshot, covering the nose and mouth. She focused solely on the eyes and brows, confirming a striking resemblance. Her heart raced. She had a hunch that the woman before her was likely Liang Gaofei's mistress. She watched as the pregnant woman and her caregiver entered the restroom, only for the caregiver to emerge alone after a considerable time, leaving the pregnant woman unseen. Checking the group chat, Xiao Lan realized it would still be a while before the female officer arrived. It seemed the moment to act had come. She swiftly slipped into the stairwell, closed the fire door behind her, and re-emerged disguised as a restroom cleaning lady. This identity was virtually invulnerable. Donning the cleaning uniform allowed her to not only clean the women's restroom, but sometimes even the men's. Gritting her teeth, Xiao Lan entered the women's restroom, her expression feigning an exaggerated sense of relaxation, though her slightly awkward gait betrayed her nervousness. Unlike the men's restroom, the women's lacked semi-open urinals, featuring only stalls which ensured privacy. This revelation eased Xiao Lan's tension, allowing her to relax further. To her right upon entering was the supply room. She donned a mask, retrieved a mop, and began her task with a resolute demeanor. Patrons came and went, oblivious to her presence. She was merely a tool in the restroom. All of Xiao Lan's focus was on the color indicators on the stall doors, discerning which stalls were occupied and which were vacant. After 3 rounds of inspection, she pinpointed several stalls that consistently indicated occupancy, yet had not yielded any occupants. Having confirmed the others, she leaned against the wall, pulling out her phone as she waited. Several women approached her during this time. "Excuse me, ma'am, that stall is quite dirty. Could you please mop it?" Initially startled, fearing exposure, Xiao Lan soon became desensitized. She had transformed into an emotionless restroom cleaning automaton. After waiting for approximately 10 minutes, the individuals from the other stalls gradually emerged. Eventually, only one remained. The sign indicating occupancy still lit. How could one ascertain that the occupant was indeed Liang Gaofei's mistress? Inside the stall, Kong Fangfei sat on the toilet lid, impatiently awaiting Liang Gaofei's arrival. Were it not for the promise of a 3 million yuan reward upon giving birth, she would have terminated the pregnancy long ago, thus avoiding this clandestine suffering. Pregnancy was already troublesome. Each prenatal checkup necessitated her hiding in the restroom, enduring further discomfort. Previously, at a private hospital, the fewer patients allowed for a more tolerable restroom environment. However, after transferring to a public hospital, while the medical standards had improved, the restroom conditions had deteriorated. How vexing. Just a little longer. Today would be the day of the cesarean, the final ordeal. As Kong Fangfei pinched her nose and played on her phone, a sudden series of loud knocks echoed from the restroom door. "Is anyone in there? I've left my phone inside." Hearing the voice of a middle-aged woman outside, Kong Fangfei's anxious heart began to settle slightly. She stood up and surveyed the stall. The only places to store items were a few hooks, a shelf, a tissue box, and the toilet tank, clear and apparent. She examined all of these, but found no sign of a phone. Just as she was about to respond that there was no phone, a frown crossed her face. Would the other party actually believe her? What if they insisted that it had been lost in here, accusing her of having hidden it? What was she to do then? Yet, remaining silent was not an option. The knocking persisted, and the person outside seemed unwilling to relent easily. If the delay stretched on and aroused suspicion, leading to a phone call to the authorities, it would jeopardize her plans even further. With this in mind, Kong Fangfei reluctantly spoke. "There's no phone here. You should search elsewhere." "I don't believe you. Open the door and let me see." Indeed, Kong Fangfei felt overwhelmed in that moment. The public hospital was crowded, and where there were many people, complications inevitably arose. How infuriating. With no other choice, she opened the door, saying, "See for yourself. I told you there's nothing." Outside stood a woman clad in cleaning attire, Xiao Lan, disguised as a janitor. She had cleverly maneuvered the situation to coax the woman inside to open the door. Feigning urgency, Xiao Lan stepped in, searching frantically. "How could there be nothing? I distinctly remember placing it here. Have you hidden it away?" As she spoke, Xiao Lan reached for the bag hanging on the hook. Kong Fangfei, agitated, quickly retorted. "Let go. Don't touch my bag. It's filthy. What could a mere toilet cleaner possess that would compel me to steal your phone worth 1,000 yuan? I wouldn't even want to glance at it." Xiao Lan, feigning indignation, trembled with fury. "How can you speak to me like that? Enough of your nonsense. Get out of my way. I didn't take your phone. If you bother me further, I'll lodge a complaint with the hospital and have you fired. Just go." Xiao Lan, appearing dejected, left reluctantly. Yet, In that fleeting moment as she turned away, a smile crept onto her lips. Her objective had been successfully accomplished. He had just kept his phone discreetly in his pocket throughout, quietly recording the woman's voice and the sound of her shoes. Seizing the opportunity, he had also tossed a listening device into her bag and briefly scanned its contents. In the rush, he managed to discern that her bag contained several articles of clothing. He promptly sent the gathered information and the recording to Ouyang, requesting him to verify whether she was indeed Liang Gaofei's mistress. Within half a minute, Ouyang excitedly replied, "It's her. Kong Fengfei. How did you obtain this footage? Where are you now? Who helped you film in the restroom?" Xiaolan responded, "I am currently at the city hospital. After encountering the woman who resembles Kong Fengfei, I asked a cleaning lady for assistance in recording her. How long until Liang Gaofei arrives?" Ouyang replied, "Traffic indicates he'll arrive in 20 minutes. Keep an eye on her. I will arrange for someone to meet you shortly." After responding, Xiaolan found an empty restroom stall and swiftly slipped inside to hide. He deliberately left the door slightly ajar to create the illusion that the stall was unoccupied. Most apartments in the hospital closed at noon and reopened at 2, resulting in a noticeable decrease in restroom traffic. However, certain departments, such as emergency and surgery, operated continuously without breaks. Liang Gaofei likely arranged this meeting time to avoid the throngs of people. After an indeterminate amount of time, footsteps echoed in the restroom. The newcomer did not pause at the preceding stalls but proceeded directly to the one occupied by Kong Fengfei. Xiaolan immediately held his breath, quietly donned his headphones, and connected to the listening device via an app on his phone. Soon, he heard a rhythmic series of knocks, 5 in total, against the stall door. Inside, 2 responses followed. In the next moment, the stall door swung open, and the newcomer quickly slipped inside. "At last you've arrived. Why are you so late?" The woman's voice emerged through the headphones. Almost immediately, a deeper voice responded. "There was an accident involving an electric scooter crossing the road, causing a complete traffic jam and delaying me." Upon hearing this, Xiaolan couldn't help but recall Ouyang's earlier message in the group chat, indicating that they had successfully delayed Liang Gaofei's arrival. It seemed this so-called accident was orchestrated by their own people, aimed at buying time. "Well, at least you made it before the surgery. It hasn't caused any delays. You only need to wait here for 40 minutes before you can leave with your son. While I have to undergo a cesarean section on the operating table, I risked everything to ensure the continuation of the Liang family line. So you must honor your promise of money and housing." Their conversation was not loud, yet through the listening device, Xiaolan could hear every word clearly. Liang Gaofei reassured her, "Rest assured, the money and house are yours. You know how important this child is to me. I could have left long ago, but I stayed for him, risking everything. Giving birth to him is a significant contribution, and I assure you, I will not treat you unfairly. Husband, do you not feel a pang of reluctance for me, even as you are unwilling to part with our child? The mere thought of never seeing you again sends waves of anguish through my heart. What shall I do in the future?" Liang Gaofei let out a cold laugh. And though Xiaolan could not see his expression, she could surmise it was laden with scorn. "Since you cannot bear to part with me, shall I take you with me when I escape the country?" Kong Fengfei choked slightly, her countenance tinged with embarrassment. She merely wished to play the coy damsel to extract more funds, who would want to be a fugitive alongside Liang Gaofei. Liang Gaofei, weary of her insincere affections, urged, "Hurry up. Enough of this frivolity. Quickly deliver the child, and we shall both acquire what we desire." Before long, the sound of rustling fabric echoed in the earpiece, suggesting they were exchanging attire. With a creak, the door swung open, and the mistress, clad in Liang Gaofei's clothes, swaggered out from the restroom. After that, silence ensued. Through the gap in the door, Xiaolan could see Liang Gaofei still ensconced in the restroom stall, making no move to emerge. He did not send any messages or make calls. Only the sound of steady breathing emanated from the listening device. It was no wonder he could remain so well hidden. He had forsaken all electronic means of communication, reverting to offline methods. He likely anticipated that the police would monitor his various online accounts, wishing to evade their tracking. Ouyang sent a new message in the group. They intend to take the newborn away, but that will not be easy. It certainly requires assistance, possibly from an espionage organization. Our personnel have arrived at the hospital, stationed at various exits. Everyone should remain vigilant and synchronize information. Do not act hastily." Xiaolan quietly awaited, striving to diminish his presence. His legs grew numb from maintaining a single position for an extended period, yet he dared not move. He could only shift his weight slightly when someone hurriedly entered the restroom. Being a competent officer truly demands resilience. After crouching for over 40 minutes, hurried footsteps once again echoed at the restroom entrance. Xiaolan initially thought it was merely another person seeking relief, but to his surprise, the individual did not rush in. Instead, they inspected each stall to confirm their emptiness before approaching Liang Gaofei's stall. The contact had arrived. Xiaolan immediately heightened his focus, ears pricked. The same 5 knocks resounded, and the door opened as the newcomer entered. "Change into this outfit. We will meet downstairs in 10 minutes. A vehicle will take you away." The visitor was a woman, masked, her speech succinct and to the point, and after delivering her message, she prepared to leave. Liang Gaofei, anxious, grasped her arm and inquired, "Wait, has my son been born? What is his condition?" Can you ensure his health during transport? She brushed his hand away, responding, rest assured. Medical personnel will accompany the vehicle. 10 minutes, and then I shall not wait. With that, the woman departed, her footsteps swift. Xiaolan, having preemptively activated the recording, could capture only a fleeting silhouette. Nevertheless, he sent the video to the group. With the police's technology, they should be able to extract frame-by-frame images to obtain a clear photograph of the woman. They were preparing to leave with the child. The vehicle awaited them downstairs, reportedly accompanied by medical personnel. Xiaolan was engrossed in typing when he noticed the door of Liang Gaofei's compartment move. He swiftly sent his message, then activated the camera, directing it towards the door. In the next moment, the door swung open, and Liang Gaofei emerged, dressed in what appeared to be a uniform. It took Xiaolan a moment to comprehend that it resembled the attire of emergency medical personnel. Could it be that they intended to depart via an ambulance? This made sense. The ambulance was equipped with various instruments capable of ensuring the health and safety of a premature infant. Yet, the fact that they could mobilize a public hospital's ambulance spoke volumes about the extensive connections of this spy organization. As Xiaolan uploaded the video, suddenly, the door before him was yanked open. Upon raising his gaze, he locked eyes with the suspect. Chapter 143. Why is this person so easily subdued? Liang Gaofei, being a spy, exhibited a heightened sense of vigilance, managing to detect someone hiding in this compartment. However, upon seeing that the occupant was a plain-looking cleaning lady in uniform, the fierceness in his eyes transformed into hesitation. Xiaolan, on the other hand, reacted differently. In his panic, he instinctively threw a punch. The force of his blow was tremendous, rendering the man unconscious in an instant. Xiaolan was taken aback. Why was this person so vulnerable to being struck? Moreover, how did he discover Xiaolan's hiding place in the restroom? All these questions remained unanswered, as Liang Gaofei had already been knocked out. The police were waiting to follow Liang Gaofei to catch a bigger fish, but with him incapacitated, what would happen to their plans? There were only 6 minutes left. Hesitation was not an option. If they missed this opportunity, another one would be hard to come by. Casting a glance at Liang Gaofei's face, Xiaolan made a silent decision. 5 minutes later, Liang Gaofei, now masked, successfully reached the ground floor. No sooner had he descended than a figure in medical attire approached him, exclaiming, "Why are you so slow? We almost couldn't wait for you. Hurry up. Assisting you entails considerable risk." As they spoke, they pulled him into the vehicle. Meanwhile, the police received orders to head to the women's restroom in the obstetrics and gynecology department to retrieve an unconscious man. This was not a challenging task for them. They simply placed a temporarily closed for cleaning sign and swiftly carried the man away. The unconscious man was none other than Liang Gaofei, who had been knocked out by Xiaolan. At this moment, the one who took Liang Gaofei's place in the ambulance was none other than Xiaolan himself. He had quickly reported the unexpected situation and his intended actions to Ouyangyu. Unable to devise a better plan in such a short time, Ouyangyu advised him to proceed with caution and to keep his identity concealed. Xiaolan hastily coordinated with the police personnel who had arrived. They equipped him with a myriad of devices, including trackers and covert recording gadgets. Rest assured, our police personnel will do their utmost to follow that ambulance, ensuring your safety. Do not engage recklessly. Prioritize your protection. Understood. Inside the ambulance, apart from Xiaolan, who was impersonating Liang Gaofei, there were 3 individuals clad in work attire, presumably medical personnel. Uncertain of their identities and fearing exposure, Xiaolan averted her gaze from them, focusing instead on the infant sleeping in a transparent incubator. The baby appeared fragile, resembling a small pomelo, its rosy complexion strikingly delicate. Xiaolan couldn't help but furrow her brow in sympathy. It was truly tragic. The child had not been fortunate in his rebirth, with a fugitive father, and thus, from the moment of birth, lost the eligibility for a civil service examination. The hardships this child might endure in the future were immeasurable. Perhaps Xiaolan's evident compassion provoked a derisive snort from another person in the vehicle. What? Are you reluctant to part with that wretched woman? You claim to desire only the child, yet upon receiving the baby, you wear a mournful expression. Who are you trying to impress? Startled, Xiaolan quickly realized that not everyone in the ambulance was a doctor. The woman speaking to her must be affiliated with Liang Gaofei. Meanwhile, Ouyangyu and his companions, listening to the live recording transmitted by Xiaolan, felt their hearts race. They were equally oblivious to the identities of the 3 individuals inside the vehicle, as everyone wore masks and the dim lighting made recognition challenging. Uncertain of their identities, Xiaolan responded with a measured reply, "I have no regrets." Just look at the way you regard the child. It's possible you are infatuated with the mother as well, the woman retorted, her frustration palpable. In a sudden fit of anger, she yanked off her mask. Liang Gaofei, I warn you, once abroad, you are not to contact that woman again. The child's mother can only be me, or else you shall see the consequences. Upon glimpsing the woman's face, Xiaolan recognized her as Liang Gaofei's legitimate wife, having seen her photograph during her research. Previous investigations had revealed that the wife was entirely unaware of Liang Gaofei's actions, whether misappropriating public funds or engaging in espionage, all of which seemed unrelated to her. However, her presence here indicated that she was fully aware of the circumstances, and whether or not she was an accomplice, She was undoubtedly guilty of harboring a criminal. In her ear, the tiny earpiece relayed Ouyang Yu's voice, confirming the identity. It was indeed Liang Gaofei's wife. With this revelation, Xiao Lan felt a wave of relief. Had she been exposed due to ignorance, all her efforts would have been in vain. She quickly donned a cheerful facade, employing the typical lines of a cad from the internet. Rest assured, my dear wife, my heart belongs only to you. Any other woman is merely a fleeting distraction. To her astonishment, her words elicited a chilling glare from the woman. You are not Liang Gaofei. Who exactly are you? Xiao Lan and the police tailing the vehicle felt a jolt of alarm. This was bad. How had she been discovered? What are you talking about? How could I not be myself? Huh. Liang Gaofei would never utter such sweet nothings. He has always been shamelessly clear about his nature. Who are you? Take off your mask. The situation grew awkward. It seemed her downfall stemmed from speaking too much. After all, they were a long-married couple, and she had quickly detected the anomaly. Meanwhile, Ouyang Yu and his team, trailing behind, were in a frenzy of desperation. Xiao Lan, see if you can manage to deceive them. If not, then so be it. They are 3, and you are but 1. Exercise utmost caution. Engage them in conversation as much as possible, and if necessary, revealing our presence is permissible. As Xiao Lan listened intently to the voice in his earpiece, he feared that in their eagerness to rescue him, they might inadvertently disclose the tracking operation. He hastily removed his mask. The car fell into a profound silence. Only Ouyang Yu on the other end continued to press. Xiao Lan, what is happening? Why is there no sound? Have you been exposed? Your husband, Liang Gaofei. A voice slowly emerged from his supposed wife, followed closely by, are you out of your mind? Saying such things suddenly. I thought you were an undercover cop. Xiao Lan feigned a look of exasperation. His face, under the influence of the thousand faces technique, now bore an uncanny resemblance to Liang Gaofei. The one who's lost their mind is you. I was in a rare good mood and wanted to speak kindly to you, yet you directly suspect I am an imposter. Do you think you're clever? Truly paranoid. The woman gritted her teeth. I assent it because you never have a kind word to say. All right, enough of your bickering. Interjected the other 2 passengers in the vehicle, unable to contain themselves any longer. Just because you're in the car doesn't mean you're safe. Let us all remain discreet and cautious. Save your arguing for the safe house. The car was once again enveloped in silence, while Ouyang Yu and his companions, having overheard the exchange, fell into an odd quietude. Had Xiao Lan truly managed to evade detection? It was absurd. He could impersonate voices. But surely he couldn't change his appearance as well? Yet, who had time for such alterations? Nonsense. There was no disguise, merely the dim lighting of the vehicle, coupled with the fact that both Xiao Lan and Liang Gaofei shared a similar tall and slender physique. After having tailed them for so many days, had they not noticed Liang Gaofei and his mistress switching identities? Male disguising as female was feasible. Surely male disguising as male was even simpler? However, that wasn't the crux of the matter. What mattered was that Xiao Lan had not been exposed. For a moment, I thought we might have to prematurely conclude the operation and apprehend those in the vehicle. It now seemed we could follow them to the safe house, where we would likely find numerous accomplices. The vehicle wound its way around, ultimately halting before a villa. With so few cars around, the police dared not draw too close, parking at a distance to observe through binoculars. Xiao Lan donned his mask once more and disembarked with the others. An infant incubator was being pushed by 2 doctors from behind, and Xiao Lan merely assumed the role of a bystander, with no one harboring suspicions about him. Upon entering, Xiao Lan was taken aback. The villa was devoid of any decor. Its exterior may have appeared opulent, but upon entry, it revealed a stark, war-torn concrete aesthetic. The hall was populated with numerous individuals, at least a dozen visible, many accompanied by families. Before Xiao Lan could voice his inquiries, his ostensible wife expressed her discontent. Is this the living condition you've arranged for us? Were we not told we were important elite talents? We immigrated to your country to serve you, and this is the treatment we receive? A person seated on the sofa immediately rose to address her, saying, it's a misunderstanding, all a misunderstanding. This is merely a transit station. By evening, vehicles will arrive to take everyone to different locations for resettlement. Ladies and gentlemen, you are the elite among the elites in various fields. Over the years, the confidential intelligence you have provided has made a significant contribution. In the future, when you come to our country, rest assured that we shall not treat you unjustly. Xiao Lan silently acknowledged that among them were the most despicable traitors, all of whom had sold their country, though he did not recognize most of the individuals present. The covert recording device concealed in his chest had transmitted their faces to the police. The authorities, upon reviewing the identities of these individuals, were incensed. This person is a university professor, that one is from a classified unit, another is an expert in the field of technology, and yet another works in the energy resources sector. How infuriating. The nation has painstakingly nurtured them, yet their insatiable greed has turned them into traitors for profit. To be fair, these individuals belong to the high-income group within the country. While they may not rival the capitalists who easily earn substantial fortunes, earning several hundred thousand or even millions annually is certainly within their grasp. They enjoy both reputation and respect in society, and their living conditions are far from poor. However, Their greed has expanded without bounds as they have tasted the sweetness of unearned gains. The prospect of selling a piece of confidential information for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands has made diligent work seem unappealing. Having experienced the pleasures of moral decay, their once orderly lives have become a torment. In essence, they are no longer satisfied with merely being part of the elite. They aspire to ascend to a privileged class. These individuals await the cover of night, hoping for a spy organization to facilitate their escape abroad. Xiaolon, too, anticipates the darkness, waiting for the police to assemble and announce the operation's commencement. As he casually strolls, he captures images of everyone present, ensuring that none will evade capture. Finally, as night envelopes the villa, the police, hidden in the shadows, confirm that no new arrivals have come and begin to issue the command to close in. The first vehicle, carrying the initial batch of spies, quietly departs. However, before it has traveled 2 miles, it is silently intercepted by police cars. Disaster strikes. An ambush. Quickly, turn around. Just as the driver attempts to swerve, they find their escape route already blocked. Alert the individuals in the villa. We are being watched. The police, overhearing their conversation, chuckled. They need not inform them. They are already one step ahead in the net. Meanwhile, within the villa, undetected, a signal jammer has subtly activated, enveloping the entire building. Simultaneously, the police force has quietly surrounded the premises. Freeze. Police. Hands on your heads. Squat down. The dozens of individuals inside the villa initially displayed panic, followed by a pallor of dread, ultimately culminating in ashen faces. There was no escaping. The officers storming in outnumbered them significantly. Moreover, those attempting to flee through the windows were swiftly apprehended at the front door. How could this be? A group of them slumped back, realizing that their days of ease had come to an end. A thought of paradise, a thought of hell. Yet, in their hearts lingered a flicker of hope. Perhaps the police did not possess sufficient evidence against them. They could still feign ignorance, stubbornly insisting that they were merely invited to a gathering. However, as the evidence collected by the police at the scene continued to mount, their encrypted chat records on the internal network were also uncovered. At this point, it was utterly over. But how exactly were they exposed? Among the crowd, Xiaolon silently cradled her head, crouching against the wall, before discreetly dispelling the effects of her disguise. That night, the police station worked through the night, meticulously unraveling the threads, and the operatives behind the spy organization were drawn out like radishes from the mud. This was a spy agency aimed at stealing intelligence from critical sectors such as our military-industrial complex and economic finance. The instigators hailed from abroad. They infiltrated the country under the guise of diplomats, journalists, businessmen, visiting scholars, and international students, establishing bases, enticing locals, engaging in infiltration, stealing secrets, and facilitating smuggling. Unbeknownst to many, their organization grew increasingly formidable. For instance, at the municipal hospital, there were doctors who had been co-opted by them, interacting daily with a diverse array of patients. Utilizing their positions, these doctors could precisely identify patients of potential value to them, thereby engaging in prolonged subversion. For example, they could target key technical talents, coaxing them to encrypt the spy organization's internal network, evading police scrutiny. If doctors wield such considerable influence, the harm caused by professors in higher education working for the spy organization is even more profound. These educators, mentoring a plethora of graduate and doctoral students, exploit their students, who ought to be the pillars of society, without their knowledge. Some professors would encourage their students to gain admission to sensitive research institutions or important governmental agencies, subsequently posing as caring elders to extract sensitive information. Unwittingly, these students become pawns, integrated into the spy network. Chapter 144. A coin falls from the sky, and we four must profit from it. Just as a spider weaves its web, it begins as a mere point, but with continual threads being pulled, the web expands into an increasingly large hexagon. As for Liang Gaofei, he was but a small node on this vast intelligence network, positioned relatively outward. He had not developed any accomplices downstream, and only knew one person upstream. Thus, the police had surveilled him for a long time, yet found little of value. Nevertheless, the nature of his work granted him access to the asset information of millions of users, the significance of which was substantial enough for the spy organization to go to great lengths to facilitate his escape abroad. Now, the net had been torn apart. The leading spider, secure in a foreign land, could escape at will, while those trapped in the web, flies and mosquitoes alike, could not flee. How infuriating! So close, yet so far. Countless individuals apprehended by the police wept in despair, filled with regret. They were not lamenting their misdeeds. Rather, they mourned the missed opportunity to escape sooner. Had they left just one day earlier, they could have traversed the vast ocean, distancing themselves from their past and rising to greatness. However, the police's words ruthlessly shattered their illusions. Fools, what do you think you are? Your entire significance within the espionage organization is derived solely from your domestic identities. Once abroad, stripped of your domestic positions and unable to continue providing classified information, you are utterly inconsequential. The police have cracked the encryption of the organization's internal network, gaining access to back-end management, clearly revealing the hierarchy among members. Even within the espionage organization, you are merely at the second or even third or fourth tier. The true core members fled long ago. Even if you were to betray your country, you could only achieve a mediocre level. What gives you the audacity to aspire to greatness? To put it plainly, you are disposable pawns. If you can be taken away, your remaining value can be extracted. If not, then so be it. The police delivered a devastating blow, leaving everyone defenseless with just a few words. Thus, it is best for you to divulge everything you know. No one will come to your rescue. It is presumed that your knowledge is limited. If you do not speak up soon, others will, and the opportunity for leniency will be granted to them instead. At this point, there is no choice but to accept reality. The previously defiant individuals shed their bravado, eagerly offering up the intelligence they possessed, accompanied by the criminals' confessions and admissions of guilt. Xiaolan's system began to enthusiastically tally the results. Ding. Statistics complete. A total of 43 criminals apprehended. This includes 15 D-level criminals, rewarded with 750,000 yuan and 750 points. 25 C-level criminals, rewarded with 500,000 yuan and 5,000 points. 2 B-level criminals, rewarded with 100,000 yuan and 1,000 points. And 1 A-level criminal, rewarded with 100,000 yuan and 1,000 points. Keep up the good work. Xiaolan raised an eyebrow. This meant a total of 75 million yuan in cash rewards and 750 points. This task system rewards, compared to Xiaolan's previous mission, were not particularly generous. Furthermore, Xiaolan exerted more effort in this task than the last, yet the rewards seemed less substantial, giving the impression of a loss. However, the system's judgment is not the ultimate standard for measuring merit. Although the crimes committed by those apprehended may not qualify as B or C level, each one is a talent that the nation has invested significantly in training. Allowing them to roam free would result in far greater havoc than the petty thieves in Feng'an district. Among them are a substantial number of graduate students and doctoral candidates. Not to mention that their 9 years of compulsory education were entirely free. The funding for their university education was also subsidized by the state. Otherwise, where in the city could one find accommodation and meals as affordable as those at university? Not to mention that the tuition for graduate studies is nearly fully covered by scholarships. If they successfully graduate with a doctorate, exorbitant relocation and talent subsidy fees are offered across the nation. It can be said that as long as one can persevere in their studies, financial concerns will be alleviated, as the state will take care of it. The cost incurred by the nation to cultivate this group of elites is incalculable. To permit them to depart abroad and contribute to foreign nations is indeed a significant loss. Even a dilapidated vessel has its 3,000 nails. These individuals, even if confined within prison walls to operate sewing machines and print examination papers, would be preferable to allowing them to become daggers aimed at us in the hands of other countries. From this perspective, the sense of fulfillment and honor that Xiaolan derived from this mission transcends monetary value. He thwarted the escape of this group of elite individuals from various professions, preventing further leaks of sensitive information. At last, he felt a sense of pride in being a competent officer. The affirming gazes of his teammates swelled his chest with pride. Remarkable, Xiaolan. This mission relied entirely on your cleverness. Otherwise, we would have been on the verge of failure. Initially, he intended to invite you to assist in identifying gaps as a secondary line of defense, yet you boldly charged to the front lines single-handedly. A personal second-class merit award is surely within reach. As for a first-class honor, well, we can certainly anticipate that. It appears that to achieve merit, one must possess both luck and capability. Xiaolan, you truly are fortunate to bear a resemblance to Liang Gaofei. Otherwise, his wife would never have mistaken you for him. Had you two not shared such similarities, the consequences are too daunting to contemplate. During the ambulance ride, we were all quite anxious for you, fearing your identity might be exposed, leading to dire outcomes. Fortunately, they are a couple driven by mutual interests, and it seemed there was little affection involved. At such close proximity, the genuine wife could not even recognize her husband's impersonator. Faced with the accolades from his colleagues at the South City branch, Xiaolan could only smile politely, refraining from engaging further. In truth, Liang Gaofei and his wife do share some affection. However, Xiaolan had utilized a system tool to entirely transform into Liang Gaofei's likeness. He directly mirrored Liang Gaofei's face, creating an identical replica in his mind, leaving no room for suspicion. Even if Xiaolan were to perform acrobatic feats in the ambulance, his wife would steadfastly believe him to be Liang Gaofei. For such miraculous disguise techniques do not exist in reality. While receiving praise from so many colleagues, Xiaolan felt both joy and trepidation. It seems that this thousand faces konjac should not be employed too frequently. Otherwise, should his fellow officers discover his ability to instantaneously alter his appearance, he could find himself subjected to governmental scrutiny for research, which would be troublesome indeed. With the mission concluded, yet Xiaolan's rental period for the stall remains unexpired. The situation has resolved itself far earlier than he anticipated, and much sooner than Director had predicted. He has yet to recover from the poisoning incident, and is still hospitalized when Xiaolan informs him that the case has been solved. Director, What should I do next? Should I return to the precinct to stand by, or? Director In, recalling Xiao Lan's previous promise of claypot rice, pondered whether, should the mission conclude early, he would still have the chance to savor it. Of course, his concern extends beyond merely the claypot rice. It fundamentally pertains to the larger picture. Ahem. Regarding the rental fees for the stall, the South City branch has indeed incurred significant expenses. If you can endure a few more days, you could recoup the costs and minimize waste of public resources, while also earning your team some deserved compensation. Xiao Lan nodded with a newfound understanding. I see. I will continue until the end of the month. It conveniently allows me to prepare meals for you as well. Director And immediately coughed uncontrollably. Ahem. That is not quite it. I didn't mean to imply that you should keep selling just for the sake of having your meals. Whether I eat or not is of no consequence. Ahem. It's more about not wanting to waste the rental fees, you understand? While Xiao Lan showcased her prowess in apprehending a spy organization, Hulai and his companions found themselves in a predicament at the claypot rice stall. They were unaware of Xiao Lan's actions. All they knew was that she had mentioned visiting a patient at the hospital and subsequently vanished for an entire day. Thankfully, their rigorous training had equipped them to manage the lunch crowd, albeit with a flurry of chaos. They felt a sense of pride, believing they had graduated to independence. Lu Dong exclaimed, it turns out that in Xiao Lan's absence, we can still whip up such delicious dishes. Incredible. Hulai responded by rounding it off. What separates us from culinary gods? A mere claypot rice, easily mastered. Lu Dong mused, I believe I've grasped it. If I retire early, I could set up a stall selling claypot rice. Wealth in my twilight years would be within reach. Hulai cheered, well said. Our retirement timelines align. We can partner up. I've even thought of a name for our venture. Purple Chi from the East. I've also come up with a name for Xiao Lan and Li AC's bun shop. Xiao Li's flying buns, so delicious they take flight. Lu Dong added, brilliant. They sell buns in the morning, we'll serve claypot rice at noon, and in the evening, we can together sell pig trotters. We'll monopolize the culinary scene in Fengling City. Hulai laughed heartily. Conquering the culinary realm is just around the corner. Any windfall from the heavens will surely be ours. However, by evening, they found themselves at a loss. Without Xiao Lan's pre-prepared ingredients, all they had learned proved futile. They clumsily attempted to replicate her claypot rice, resulting in a dish that left them pale with despair. The laughter of noon was replaced by the sorrow of night. Lu Dong lamented, it makes no sense. Why is the rice burnt while the vegetables remain uncooked? Hulai remarked, but I remember Xiao Lan doing it this way. Why does the chicken taste so fishy and the mushrooms so tough? Lu Dong sighed, don't even mention it. This bowl of freshly sliced beef is as tough as if it were carved from a mummy. Could there be an issue with the ingredients? Li Si, overhearing their complaints, angrily confronted them, delivering a shoulder throw to each. What is the problem? The quality has been consistent for days. Don't speak with your eyes closed. I haul several sacks of ingredients upstairs every day. Sometimes, reflect on your own skills. Has your culinary ability improved? Are you working diligently? Hulai and Lu Dong stammered, scrambling to salvage their dignity. It's not that bad. While it may not reach Xiao Lan's level, it's still at least decent. Just then, a loud clatter interrupted them. Turning around, they found Xiao He, having tasted the food, kicking over his stainless steel dog bowl in a fit of rage, spinning in circles before baring his teeth and barking furiously at Hulai and Lu Dong, as if questioning, my master regards you as brothers. Why do you poison me? Li Si swiftly uncovered the evidence. Look, even stray dogs refuse to eat the meals you prepare, and yet you continue to chatter. The beef you have butchered has been rendered useless. This noble creature died in vain. His words struck a chord, and at last, Lu Dong and Hulai realized they lacked the extraordinary talent for reversing fate in their twilight years. Do not underestimate the youth in poverty, nor the middle-aged, nor the elderly. The deceased deserve our utmost respect. The Purple Chi from the East duo had yet to debut and were already facing a downfall. That evening, they were forced to hang a sign declaring, vendor temporarily closed. The proprietor is away. Fortunately, Xiao Lan made an appearance in the group chat that night, bringing news that their mission had been successfully concluded. Unbeknownst to Hulai and the others, events had unfolded seamlessly, with the espionage organization nearly obliterated. And they had effortlessly triumphed, guided by Xiao Lan. Hulai lamented, why is there no sense of accomplishment? We have been operating the stall for less than 2 weeks, catching a gang of rapists and exposing a spy organization. It sounds as if we have accomplished much. Yet it feels as though we have done nothing but eat day in and day out. Lu Dong replied, this is how it is when playing games with a master. They charge ahead, while we must navigate numerous considerations. Thankfully, we emerged victorious in the end. In the group chat, Li Si, exasperated by their incessant chatter, fired off 2 voice messages. Stop your pretentiousness. At least you got to be on site. I have been running to the market this whole time. Now that is what I call a lack of experience. I don't care. Next time we have a mission, I must accompany Brother Lan. Xiao Lan, observing their eagerness, sighed. I do not yet know what the next mission entails. The director mentioned a few more days are left, and the stall rent is not cheap. We will finish the remaining days before leaving. The 3 in the chat replied in unison, understood. Xiao Lan had no inkling that his extended stay had cost someone millions. Indeed, that individual was Brother Tao. At that moment, he was live streaming, Having indulged in clay pot rice for over a week, his spirits were high, and he looked revitalized. Viewers queried, "Didn't you already have an appointment with the next restaurant? Why haven't you gone after a week? You aren't thinking of staying, are you?" Brother Tao smiled with satisfaction. After a week, his face had noticeably rounded. Eating carbohydrates truly adds weight, yet this was the kind of weight that brings joy, distinct from the stress-induced weight gained from work. Every ounce of fat was a manifestation of happiness. Brother Tao replied, "I truly don't want to leave. But I will go eventually. I will head there once I finish my matters." The barrage of comments included inquiries. What matters? Is it about buying a house? One could only commend the viewers for their keen insight, having followed Brother Tao since his rise to fame, knowing him as intimately as if they were privy to his innermost thoughts. Chapter 145. Unfamiliar in all things, lax in all matters. Brother Tao was astonished by the comments. He produced his newly acquired property deed, beaming as he exclaimed, "How did you know? I really did buy it. The paperwork has just been completed." Right across at Greenview Garden. Amidst the envious gazes of netizens, Brother Tao continued, expressing his prior hesitation regarding a purchase, particularly since he had already acquired several properties in Feng'an District. However, he observed that the vendor of claypot rice had been operating his stall for nearly half a month, exhibiting a remarkable stability in his business. Furthermore, it was rumored that the vendor visited friends in the hospital during the day, suggesting that his family and friends resided in the area, indicating a settled lifestyle, unlike the dumpling vendor who had recently arrived from afar. Additionally, not long ago, a property in Greenview Huading was available at a bargain price. After inspecting it, he found the floor and layout to be excellent. And since the owner was in urgent need of funds, he managed to acquire it at a low price, deeming it a worthy investment. In summary, Brother Tao, driven by a passion for culinary delights, purchased yet another property, this time a high-end one, equivalent to several in Feng'an District. The netizens' envy was palpable, and the live streaming room was thick with a sense of jealousy. "Darn it, I truly despise you affluent individuals. I confess, I harbor malice. May you find every tempting venture fleeting, chasing the vendor around the world, each encounter destined for subsequent parting. I must voice my frustration. It was the host who flaunted wealth, assaulting my fragile spirit. What's wrong with my retaliation? I wager that vendor will surely flee, whether tomorrow or the day after. His pause in business today signals his departure." The dumpling vendor also made a sudden dash one day, only to run away entirely. Brother Tao and his 99 fleeing vendors. I stake my claim here. The joy of street vending lies in its flexibility and nomadic nature. Do not presume that your wealth can purchase the free spirit of the vendor. To those ahead, do you comprehend the gravity of words? In response to the sour remarks from the viewers, Brother Tao merely smiled, exuding tranquility. He was confident that the vendor would not depart. The previous vendor's situation was merely an exception. Those in business must always consider maximizing their profits. He foresaw the future business plans of the claypot rice vendor. Nearby was a shopping center, bustling with greater foot traffic. He speculated that the vendor's next move would be to relocate his stall to the entrance of the shopping center, thereby entering the core commercial district. Once he had accumulated sufficient capital, he would directly establish a presence in the mall. This process would likely take at least 6 months. By that time, his own property would be newly renovated, perfectly timed for his residence. The following day, Xiaolon set up his stall as usual. It seemed to confirm Brother Tao's assertion. He would not be leaving. Today, Xiaolon was full of vigor, every movement radiating a sense of grace and efficiency. Even with a mask on, customers could sense his joy through his animated gestures. Freed from the burdens of supervision, he could fully immerse himself in the culinary process. It was as if he had sprouted 8 arms, with 20 stoves acting as extensions of his being. Every pot was under his control, when to lift, when to add meat, when to lower the flame. He managed it all effortlessly. He required no assistance, and even without Hu Lai by his side to aid him, his efficiency soared. Hu Lai and Lu Dong were solely responsible for serving and taking orders. They could clearly sense that today's customers were more numerous, yet their tasks felt remarkably lighter. For someone was exceptionally skilled today, effortlessly dominating the scene. The two glanced at Xiaolon, who stood close yet seemed separated by an ocean, leaving them in a state of envious admiration. It turned out that Xiaolon had not been exerting his full capabilities before. How infuriating. This talent cannot be acquired. Truly cannot be learned. His hands moved so swiftly that they left traces in the air. Those in the know recognized he was cooking, while others might have mistaken him for a DJ mixing tracks. I had thought that only my eyes had mastered the art while my hands had not. It turns out my eyes had never truly learned it all. Xiaolon was engrossed in showcasing his culinary skills when, suddenly, his fluid motions paused. The interruption came not from any distraction, but rather from someone critiquing his cooking. "Boss, that's not quite right. You added the salt too early. It should be added just before serving, otherwise, it will oxidize." I understand this is a detail, but details define attitude. And attitude determines the heights of one's life. You fail to pay attention to the details. Hence, despite the online praise elevating your humble stall, you remain unable to transcend the chasm between a street vendor and a Michelin-starred establishment. Upon hearing the voice, Xiaolon looked up to see a young man and woman standing before him. Both appeared to be in their 20s, with the man doing the talking. The woman wore black-framed glasses and donned an outfit heavily inspired by anime, adorned with lace and casual in style. Whether it truly embodied the essence of anime culture, Xiaolan could not discern, but it radiated a strong aura of otaku charm. She seemed somewhat socially anxious, occasionally biting her lip, clearly uncomfortable in a crowded space. In contrast, the young man exuded confidence and charisma, animatedly conversing with her. After critiquing Xiaolan's culinary methods, he proceeded to impress the girl with his knowledge and experiences. For claypot rice, one must use high-quality clay pots. The finest clay pots originate from Suzhou, known as the capital of ceramics. The man, much like a peacock displaying its feathers, emanated charm with a familiar air. He spoke with authority about the clay pots and the preparation of claypot rice. Xiaolan felt a surge of gratitude for his mask. Without it, his face would have betrayed his amusement. What a mismatch this was. The young man was articulate and persuasive, yet every word he uttered was incorrect. The capital of ceramics is not Suzhou, but Yixing. Moreover, salt should be added just before serving soup, not due to oxidation, but to prevent the iodine in the salt from volatilizing and to avoid premature coagulation of proteins, which results in nutrient loss. This young man embodied a curious blend of ignorance and superficiality. However, when it comes to impressing a crush, Xiaolan could still empathize with him. Observing the tentative atmosphere between the two, it was apparent that the young man was exerting himself excessively, perhaps due to his unfulfilled romantic aspirations. Forget it. I am merely a non-playable character in their narrative, unworthy of concern, merely a passing whim of his. Thus, Xiaolan refrained from voicing any rebuttal, silently stifling laughter while feigning to be a mere cage. However, in a fleeting moment of looking down, Xiaolan's gaze inadvertently caught sight of the red light on the snack cart. The red light signified the presence of a nefarious individual among the patrons. Such a glaring red, indicating at least a B-grade threat, swiftly escalating towards an A-grade. Action must be taken. Xiaolan's expression suddenly turned grave. He lifted his gaze once more, scrutinizing the man and woman standing before him, his eyes sharpening with intensity. The wrongdoer lay nestled between them, and Xiaolan instinctively suspected that the man was the culprit. After all, what malevolent intentions could one expect from the realm of two dimensions? In the next heartbeat, he absorbed the system's notification of a criminal record. Weiwei, creation and dissemination of obscene materials, including explicit publications and images, with over 10,000 victims. Yet no profit was gained. Xiaolan was momentarily taken aback, pondering within. What? Wait, no profit? How is this different from a living bodhisattva? Halt. This line of thought is unacceptable. Do not forget your identity. Even without profit, it constitutes a crime. This is unlawful. It must be condemned with seriousness. Yet, could this truly warrant the snack cart's light glowing with such intensity? Wait, Weiwei surely is not the name of this man, is it? Could it be that the one engaged in such indecency is this seemingly socially anxious girl? Xiaolan found himself bewildered, his thoughts in disarray. Just then, a new criminal record appeared, albeit belatedly. Luo Yong, attempted murder. Xiaolan had scarcely finished reading before shock washed over him. It appeared that both individuals harbored hidden, undisclosed secrets. Are you both a modern-day Smith couple? The pair, named Luo Yong and Weiwei, after acquiring their clay pot rice, chose not to take it away but rather to dine in situ. Xiaolan made a point to eavesdrop on their conversation. In such a public setting, it was reasonable to deduce they would not divulge any unsavory secrets, discussing instead topics suitable for polite company. From their dialogue, Xiaolan gathered that they were online acquaintances meeting for the first time. They had conversed extensively online. Yet the reality of their meeting did not unfold as they had envisioned. The girl scarcely spoke throughout, embodying her socially anxious demeanor. Her head nearly buried in the clay pot, sinking lower with each moment. The man, however, was loquacious, chattering exuberantly. Even the delectable clay pot rice could not silence him. While chewing the crispy rice, he exclaimed, "This clay pot rice, chew, 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 is quite good, but not the best I've ever had. Back in the day, chew, 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 when I worked at the First People's Hospital in Los Angeles, a girl who had a crush on me, chew, 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 once made me clay pot rice. And the flavor was simply exquisite. Unfortunately, puffing cheeks, tongue-cleaning teeth. Alas, that girl succumbed to late-stage prostate cancer, and she is no more. In my sorrow, I resigned from my position at the First People's Hospital in Los Angeles and returned home. Abandoning medicine for literature, I transformed into a poet, traversing the vast landscapes of my homeland. Amidst the breathtaking scenery, my heartache was finally healed. Alas, spitting out remnants of food. Then I encountered you, and you pondered whether this was fate. I wonder how the young lady felt upon hearing such words. Meanwhile, the patrons in line around us stifled their laughter, concealing their mouths. The muffled giggles were not due to their inability to contain their mirth, but rather a synchronized practice of beatboxing. At the Los Angeles First People's Hospital, none possess a deeper understanding of foreign medical institutions than he does. As for matters concerning the prostate, whether or not it exists in women is for him to determine. For he is a wayward soul, a romantic who has wandered the world due to heartache. He has forsaken medicine for the arts. Truly, he is not to be trifled with. On several occasions, Xiaolon observed grains of rice propelled from the man's mouth landing in the young lady's hair. Fortunately, she did not raise her head, lest her face be the one to receive such a baptism. Yet, is it not possible that she deliberately lowered her head to avoid such an encounter? What she truly thinks remains a mystery, known only to herself. She simply kept her head down, quietly eating, without uttering a word. However, her silence, in the eyes of the man across from her, became a sign of obedience. Her lowered gaze, a gesture of submissiveness. Her bitter smile, an indication of goodwill. Perhaps this delicate demeanor instilled a sense of overconfidence in Luo Yong, as if he were certain of winning her affection. Consequently, he began to stretch his limbs, casually crossing his legs, nearly toppling the folding table. The young lady hastily reached out to steady the hot pot, only to scald her fingers, tears welling in her eyes from the pain. Thankfully, the pot was encased in a woven heat-resistant cover, or her entire hand would have been burned. Unbeknownst to him, the man continued to prattle on, wiping grease from his mouth. I've heard your family is quite affluent, yet you are remarkably frugal, adorned in none but non-branded attire. How splendid. Thriftiness is a virtue. Wearing clothes from street vendors is still wearing clothes. If you ask me, one should seek a partner like you. Though your looks are modest, you lack flair. And you are even older than I, yet this is what life is about, wouldn't you agree? The young lady's eyes reddened further, as if scalded or incensed. Many patrons in line could no longer endure the scene and wished to speak up on her behalf. How absurd. The garments she wore were all bespoke, niche designs, requiring a half-year wait for pre-orders and a race against time to secure them. Otherwise, one would have to pay exorbitant prices to scalpers. How dare he label them as mere street market wares? In the realm of the fantastical, appearances can be deceiving. What seems unremarkable may come at a steep price. The seemingly insignificant plastic figurines do not surpass the height of a water bottle and are priced at a mere 99 yuan with shipping. Yet, in reality, prices commence at thousands, soaring to infinity. Encountering a limited edition figurine could cost tens of thousands. A connoisseur could identify the true worth of her attire with a mere glance. Eager to counter his remarks, yet fearing exposure for eavesdropping, they remained silent. One could only hope that the young lady would find her voice and speak up for herself. Or perhaps one could simply place the clay pot atop his head and walk away. Yet, the girl was so overwhelmed by social anxiety that she could not muster a single retort. Meanwhile, the man across from her, noticing her prolonged silence and inactivity with her chopsticks, seized her clay pot rice without hesitation. Why aren't you eating? Are you full after just this little? Honestly, you young ladies are quite wasteful. Let me help you finish it. Before the girl could intervene, he plunged his used spoon into her rice, stirring it about, and then scooped a generous mouthful to devour. Ever since I traveled the world, he mumbled between bites, and witnessed those impoverished souls unable to afford a meal. I have truly come to appreciate the value of food. Chapter 146, Los Angeles First People's Hospital. At that time, I shared all the food I had with them, enduring hunger myself as I trekked across Africa, surviving solely by foraging for wild vegetables. When asked why he didn't hunt wild chickens or ducks for sustenance, he replied, I am a member of the Animal Protection Association, and I hold a deep affection for small creatures. Since that African journey, he vowed never to waste a single grain of rice. Thus, it was not mere gluttony that compelled him to consume her leftovers, but rather his commitment to environmentalism. The man's mouth resembled an open trash bin, as he swiftly devoured the majority of the clay pot rice. While picking his teeth with his pinky, he remarked, By the way, didn't you mention that your housekeeper always prepares too much food that you can't finish? If we start dating, feel free to pass along anything you can't eat. I assure you, nothing will go to waste. My dear, just think of the money you'll save with me around. You've hit the jackpot. The girl silently withdrew her hand, which she had extended to stop him, her eyes reflecting nothing but exhaustion. Xiaolon may not possess the ability to read minds, yet he seemed to hear the girl's unspoken thoughts. I'm tired. Just end this quickly. One wonders if she regretted all the conversations she had with Luo Yong online, which had now become tools for him to vex her. With the clay pot rice consumed, this long and frigid rendezvous finally came to an end. As she departed, she appeared to age 5 years, her legs unsteady beneath her. Perhaps it was her first attempt to open her heart, to step out of her home and engage with the outside world. Yet, the man with whom she had felt an extraordinary connection online had delivered a crushing blow upon their meeting. Ultimately, she realized that opening her heart was futile. It was indeed better to remain at home. The man continued to invite her to watch a movie or go shopping, but she resolutely shook her head in refusal. Observing her retreating figure, Luo Yong commented, She's shy. TSK, she has fallen for me so quickly. In contrast, Xiaolon silently clasped his hands together in his heart. I apologize, my dear. I had no choice. Unbeknownst to anyone, he had secretly added a touch of genuine emotion mushroom to the man's clay pot rice. There was no doubt that the man's earlier discomforting display was not an act. It was a sincere revelation of his true nature. Xiaolon did not intend to discuss the young lady. Rather, the man in question was suspected of attempted murder, poisoning, and unlawful entry, undeniably a dangerous individual. His eagerness to charm the young lady was not necessarily rooted in love. It could very well be a sinister intention to exploit her. After all, She resided in the prestigious Greenview Garden, indicating her family's affluence. Unfortunately, a mere expression of genuine emotion was insufficient to unveil the man's nefarious thoughts, merely showcasing his blind confidence. With a sigh, Xiaolon felt relieved that he had prepared a contingency. In addition to the genuine emotion mushroom, he had also included a reformed little chili pepper. However, the chili pepper's effects were slow to manifest, likely taking until tonight. He hoped it would prove useful. Upon returning home, Xiaolon remained unsettled. The more he contemplated, the more he believed that the man named Luo Yong was highly likely to become an S-class criminal. The prerequisite for such a designation typically involved taking a life. When it comes to matters of life and death, one must always exercise greater caution. Taking preventive measures is never unwarranted. After much consideration, he decided to call Captain Liu. Captain, I would like to request the personal information and criminal record of an individual named Luo Yong. Is that permissible? Is this for a case? Yes. But I currently lack evidence. It is merely a suspicion. I assure you, I will not disclose the information. This individual is likely involved in criminal activity. Captain Liu hesitated. Although their police system was comprehensive, capable of accessing various private information of citizens nationwide, it could not be accessed indiscriminately. Misuse of authority could lead to severe repercussions. Xiaolon, you have accomplished so much. I trust you. However, this matter does not align with regulations, you understand? Our police system has stringent security measures. Every query is recorded, including when, what, and on whose device it was searched. If questioned afterward, one must provide a valid reason or face criticism in meetings. Upon hearing this, Xiaolon nearly abandoned the idea. I apologize, Captain. I did not mean to burden you. I was just a bit hasty. I will consider alternative methods. As he was about to hang up, Captain Liu called out to him. Wait, don't rush to hang up, young man. I never said you couldn't search. Is there still hope? Captain Liu shook his head with mild annoyance, as if Xiaolon were before him. Request a special approval from Director N. You are currently executing a special task, right? Special circumstances require special handling, you understand? But I must remind you, this must be for official duties. You are still young and your future is bright. Do not tarnish it over trivial matters. Xiaolon promptly replied, understood. Thank you, Captain. Captain Liu chuckled, suddenly appearing a bit bashful. Don't just thank me. When will I get to taste your claypot rice? I'll cover the cost of the ingredients. Beep beep beep. The response to Captain Liu was the busy tone of a disconnected call. Old Liu, in a fit of exasperation, forced a smile and remarked on the urgency of the situation. The following noon, when Xiaolon delivered a meal for the ailing Director N, he casually broached a particular request. The director refrained from giving an immediate response, instead sharing a cautionary tale. A young police officer from the city, in a fit of rage over his girlfriend's infidelity, had impulsively accessed her entire hotel stay records and exposed them online. The repercussions were severe. He was not only dismissed from the police force, but also faced legal consequences for misconduct. Upon hearing this, Xiaolon promptly raised 3 fingers in a solemn vow. I swear, I am only executing my official duties. It is not an emotional impulse. And I do not even have a girlfriend. The director, maintaining a facade of professionalism, patted his shoulder and replied, I certainly trust you. However, he shifted the conversation by recounting another incident. A deputy officer, in dire financial straits, had downloaded numerous personal records and sold them online, facing stringent penalties upon discovery. Xiaolon again raised 3 fingers. I swear, I am not in need of money. I assure you, I have no unhealthy habits. My earnings suffice for my needs. The director nodded, his expression suggesting that no further explanation was necessary, but he continued with yet another example. A female officer, in pursuit of a celebrity online, had engaged in a dispute with rival fans and subsequently accessed their personal information to threaten them. Xiaolon had become adept at raising his hand. But before he could articulate his oath, the director interjected, I have already asked old Liu to assist you in obtaining the information. He clarified that these examples were merely spontaneous critiques, devoid of distrust or admonishment. Xiaolon almost believed him. Had it not been for old Deng discreetly raising his hand nearby, it was likely that Director N had many more similar cases to share. Regardless, the information had been secured. Before long, old Liu transmitted Luo Yong's personal information. Xiaolon perused it casually, discovering it to be alarmingly detailed, which explained the police's cautious approach to such data. With this confidential dossier, Xiaolon could, if he wished, appear at Luo Yong's bedside that very night, whispering the phone numbers of his distant relatives. However, he had no intention of doing so. The rightful use of this information was to enable the police to arrive swiftly at the side of citizens, as if sent by divine intervention to rescue them from peril. It served as a shield for law-abiding citizens and a death knell for criminals. Through his examination of the documents, Xiaolon had come to know Luo Yong more intimately than even his own mother. The records indicated that Luo Yong grew up in a single-parent household, with only his mother present. After graduating from middle school, he had worked for a few years but, unable to endure the hardships of labor, ceased working altogether. He had become reliant on his family, with no legitimate employment history at the so-called First People's Hospital of Los Angeles. Of course, there was no First People's Hospital in Los Angeles. The grandiose tales he had spun were likely cobbled together from hastily researched online information, incomplete and muddled. Akin to someone who had skimmed through the 4 great classical novels without truly comprehending them, ultimately misremembering details. However, his reliance on his family was not the most deeply concealed aspect of his character. The most perplexing aspect of his life is that at the tender age of 22, he remains unmarried, yet he is already the father of a 4-year-old child. He met the child's mother during their laborious endeavors, both of them under the legal marriage age, and even welcomed a child into the world while they were still merely adolescents. It seems that upon reaching adulthood, the woman's mental faculties waned, akin to amniotic fluid dissipating, leading her to the realization that a future with this man held no promise. She abandoned the child and fled. While it is indeed tragic for the child to be deprived of a mother, fortune favored her in this instance, for she escaped quickly. This Luo Yong, however, is a criminal in the making, currently classified as a B-grade offender, with prospects of escalation looming ahead. To Xiaolan's dismay, after thoroughly reviewing all of Luo Yong's records, he found no prior criminal history. This suggests that Luo Yong's life over the past 22 years has been relatively uneventful, even if disturbances arose. They did not culminate in incarceration. Xiaolan found himself in a quandary. Without a criminal record, he faced difficulties in having his colleagues summon Luo Yong to the police station for questioning. Although the food truck had unequivocally documented Luo Yong's criminal behavior, there was no evidence to substantiate the charges of attempted murder or poisoning. Without evidence, apprehension was impossible, and the existence of the food truck must remain concealed. Just yesterday, I had given him a chance for redemption, hoping that the little firecracker would take action. Xiaolan silently wished for him to surrender voluntarily. He then perused Luo Yong's report records. Only one entry existed, filed at the stroke of 1 o'clock last night, which, according to local protocol, had been redirected to the Southern District Precinct. This was promising. Excitedly, Xiaolan reached out to Ouyang Yu at the Southern District. He requested assistance in investigating the handling of the report. Surely this was feasible. Ouyang Yu responded promptly. You mean the Luo Yong who reported last night? Yes, indeed. There was such an incident. However, he barely uttered a few words before abruptly disconnecting the call, and he was incoherent, only crying incessantly. Xiaolan's heart sank. Was it merely tears? Did he not express anything akin to remorse? Did you follow up with a home visit? Ouyang Yu, somewhat exasperated, recounted. Oh, we did. He kept repeating that he deserved to die, but he could not articulate a complete thought through his sobs. Given his state, we were concerned that he might have encountered some unforeseen incident causing his silence. Thus, we promptly dispatched nearby patrol officers to check on him. Can you guess what happened? Upon knocking, it turned out he was perfectly fine. He merely claimed to be curious about calling the police. However, once he realized that making a false report was illegal, he panicked, burst into tears, and hastily hung up. You see, this was a complete waste of police resources. My colleagues had made the trip for nothing. And after admonishing him, they left. Alas, we have encountered such peculiarities before. Amidst our daily grind, we continue to face these absurdities. Xiaolan felt utterly defeated. Indeed, both the big mushroom and the little firecracker had their flaws. They were not infallible, and the points expended had gone to waste. Even with a dual approach, there will always be some eccentric individuals who manage to slip through the cracks. For instance, while the transformative essence of the little chili pepper can elevate one's moral standing, what if the individual in question resides beneath the threshold of morality, even in the depths of a chasm? How then could one hope to elevate such a person? By the way, why have you suddenly inquired about him? Do you know him? Ouyang Yu abruptly recalled his curiosity. Xiaolan, preoccupied with other matters, offered a hasty response before terminating the call. This predicament proved to be quite troublesome. Lacking evidence, it would be unjust to detain Luo Yong for questioning. The system's tools had been summoned twice, yet none could compel him to confess to attempted murder, poisoning, or trespassing. That young woman might very well suffer under his persecution. However, whether her persecution was imminent remained uncertain. Given Xiaolan's position, to carelessly alert the young woman could lead to her perceiving him as a malicious intruder. But what if he sent colleagues from the precinct to speak with her? It seemed plausible, yet what rationale could he provide to persuade them to visit her? Reporting her for engaging in lewd activities? This notion fleetingly crossed Xiaolan's mind before he promptly dismissed it. After all, to ensure her safety from potential harm by sending her to the station for protection seemed rather peculiar. Moreover, she had not profited from her minor transgressions, which did not constitute a grave offense. It was merely a slight indiscretion, hardly warranting incarceration. Typically, a gentle reprimand sufficed. Human desires are natural. When one is hungry, they seek food, and when satiated, they may indulge in other pleasures. This is a commonality of human nature, and the law tends to overlook such behaviors as long as they do not provoke significant societal unrest. Otherwise, enforcement would be unmanageable. Chapter 147. A living bodhisattva in the Grand Temple. But I digress. How should this matter be approached? Xiaolan experienced, for the first time, the helplessness that accompanies even the most advantageous circumstances. His position demanded adherence not only to outcomes of justice, but also to procedural justice. Given another opportunity, he would unhesitatingly administer a triple, no, quintuple dose of the little chili pepper, determined to subdue Luo Yong. Yet the concern remained. In a couple of days, his stall would vanish, and whether Luo Yong would return for another meal was uncertain. Faced with continual setbacks, Xiaolan placed his hopes in the points redemption marketplace. He tirelessly refreshed the list, hoping to discover a useful new tool that could turn the tide. It was not until the final day of his stall that a turning point emerged. Among the queue of customers, he spotted a familiar figure clad in anime-inspired attire. It was the socially anxious girl, Wei Wei. She had come alone to buy food, dressed in a subtle black outfit, though styled like a magical cloak. It was impossible not to notice her. Amidst the crowd, Wei Wei, wearing a mask, endeavored to diminish her presence. Typically, those with social anxiety fear everyone. Yet in this moment, she wished for a multitude, enough to envelop her, thus preventing her from being seen by a certain bothersome individual. Indeed, it was Luo Yong, the very person who had splattered her with remnants of food and seized her clay pot rice. It is difficult to fathom that merely 2 days prior, she regarded Luo Yong as a confidant with whom she shared everything. Yet, following a single meeting, she found herself astounded, relegating him to the status of the most detestable person in her life, without exception. While she equally despised all discourteous individuals, others did not persistently harass her. But Luo Yong did. Perhaps he perceived Wei Wei's timid demeanor as a sign of weakness, believing that with enough persistence, he could eventually win her over. Even fierce women fear clingy suitors, and in his eyes, Wei Wei was not a fierce woman but rather a delicate flower, sheltered and fragile. However, Wei Wei suffered from social anxiety, not a lack of intelligence. Her childish attire did not indicate immaturity of thought. She had simply lived alone for too long, lacking practice in verbal communication, not because her mind was dull. Luo Yong's intentions were almost written plainly on his face, and his pretentious quotations, riddled with errors, were enough to elicit 1,000 internal critiques from Wei Wei. What irked her most was that he even had the audacity to snatch her clay pot rice. Both servings of clay pot rice had been purchased with her own money. Of course, it was not merely a matter of finances. The dish was exquisitely delicious. In her entire life, she had never tasted anything so delightful. It was for the sake of this delectable clay pot rice that she endured his lewd demeanor and buried herself in her meal. Yet, when she merely ate at a slower pace, he took it upon himself to claim her food under the pretext of, "If you're not eating, I'll help you with it." This infuriated her to the point of murderous thoughts. If only she had a keyboard at hand, she could unleash a torrent of insults upon Luo Yong, leaving him utterly humiliated and contemplating deleting his account and starting anew. But alas, she had none on her. If one assumes she is a timid presence in reality, yet a fierce keyboard warrior online, they underestimate her. In real life, she is not submissive. She simply struggles with verbal expression, dictated by her professional circumstances. Since graduating from university, she has worked from home for 5 years, rarely engaging in conversation, primarily communicating through her keyboard. The keyboard has become an extension of her being, her second mouth. Her primary occupation is that of a freelance illustrator, one with a respectable reputation in the industry. Although her earnings do not rival the top-tier artists who sell illustrations for hundreds of thousands, she can command several tens of thousands for her work. With diligence, producing 4 or 5 pieces monthly could yield an income of around 100,000. Even if she were to be lazy and create only 1 or 2, it would suffice to cover her monthly expenses. Many who do not know Wei Wei mistakenly assume she is a reclusive otaku, doing nothing all day while living off a substantial inheritance left by her parents. However, the reality is far different. Just before her graduation, Wei Wei's parents tragically perished in a car accident. They left her a fully paid apartment in Greenview Garden and a considerable sum of money. Yet, that money quickly dwindled as her grandmother suffered a stroke upon hearing the news of her parents' demise. Medical fees, caregiver expenses, and rehabilitation costs poured out like a flood. Many relatives, upon witnessing her rapid expenditure, advised her to give up. "Your grandmother is elderly. She has lived enough. Everyone encounters such trials in old age. Rather than living a life devoid of dignity due to complete paralysis, it would be more prudent to ease the burden of care and allow her to find release sooner. It would also be wise to reserve some funds for one's own future." The relatives, while seemingly indifferent, are not entirely malicious. At least they do not attempt to seize Wei Wei's inheritance, opting instead for a hands-off approach to avoid complications. Their coldness starkly contrasts with the realization that, after losing her parents, her grandmother remains the sole person in this world who genuinely cares for and loves her. Thus, Wei Wei vowed that as long as her grandmother draws breath, she would provide her with the utmost care. Consequently, Wei Wei resolutely brought her grandmother into her home, assuming sole responsibility for her care. 5 years have swiftly passed. Her grandmother continues to thrive, well cared for, and in good health. With regular cleaning of bedding, frequent massages, and routine health checkups, her grandmother has avoided bed sores and other complications, and she emits no unpleasant odors. She lives with dignity. To alleviate her grandmother's boredom, Wei Wei often engages her in conversation. Her grandmother retains some mobility in her eyes, allowing for simple communication through blinking, which enables them to select her preferred television programs together. Wei Wei has enlisted the finest family doctor and the most attentive caregivers. employing various high-tech products to monitor her health and emotional well-being continuously. Under the generous flow of financial support, her grandmother has transformed from a frail patient into a vibrant tree. Although immobile, she remains healthy and full of life. One can perceive her vitality through her lush green leaves, sturdy trunk, and budding shoots. Wei Wei, akin to a lark that frequently visits the tree to play, brings joy and warmth whenever she flits about. Each visit causes the leaves to shimmer as if kissed by sunlight, exuding a golden halo of happiness. As long as Wei Wei is willing and able to spend, she can continually nourish the tree and provide her grandmother with the finest living conditions. Her talent and dedication in painting have allowed her to earn a sustainable income before exhausting her inheritance. This life is beautiful, and Wei Wei is content. With family nearby, work as a passion, and the autonomy of being her own boss, she is spared the intricacies of complicated relationships while also forging connections with like-minded individuals from afar. She possesses family, friends, and a career, yet she finds herself lacking in love. As a woman with normal developmental and hormonal levels, she occasionally feels lonely, yearning for a deep, intimate connection. While venturing out may not yield such experiences, it is not a significant concern. Without staple foods, meal replacements suffice. When the desire for romance arises, she simply turns to her keyboard, crafting one romantic tale after another. The protagonists in her stories can range from childhood sweethearts to couples who marry before falling in love, from passionate yet tumultuous relationships to adversaries becoming lovers. Of course, there are times when emotions take a back seat, and she opts for a thrilling ride instead. With 1,000 words, she embarks on a long-distance journey, speeding along the highway through the night, driving toward the city's edge, amidst the fervent blaze and the thunderous tumult of nature. As the gasoline runs dry and the fervor of hormones dissipates, tranquility envelopes her. She writes for the sheer joy of it, unencumbered by the need for monetary gain. Once her heart is lightened, she shares her musings online, inviting kindred spirits to partake in her elation. Occasionally, in a burst of generosity, she pens a piece and, feeling inspired, sketches a few illustrations to accompany her narratives. With her adept artistry, her simple drafts rival the quality of imperial provisions during times of disaster relief. Countless souls online extol her as a living bodhisattva, deeming her worthy of reverence. In essence, she finds profound contentment in her life, having achieved a self-sustaining existence reminiscent of a post-agricultural era. Especially after adopting 3 cats, she feels complete, elevated to the status of a mother of 3. Her life now wholly fulfilled, devoid of further desires. How could someone as financially secure, mentally enriched, emotionally fulfilled, and physically content as she be easily ensnared by mere entanglements? In other words, how could a woman capable of thriving independently for 5 years, rising from obscurity to prominence within her field, be effortlessly manipulated by someone like Luo Yong? This Luo Yong, during their online exchanges, displayed charm and insight, sharing her interests and aspirations. In retrospect, it is possible he engaged a professional to converse on his behalf. At that time, Wei Wei's heart was genuinely stirred. She believed she had found a soul mate, and even compromised her usual principles by agreeing to meet in person. To her utter dismay, the reality of Luo Yong was far from her expectations. He was insufferably lewd. His thought processes were not only misaligned with hers, but also deviated from those of any reasonable individual. In their face-to-face encounter, Wei Wei chose not to engage deeply, aware that her words might falter, leaving her at a disadvantage in any argument. Following their meeting, she promptly conveyed her feelings of incompatibility and subsequently blocked and deleted him. However, Luo Yong resorted to an array of alternate accounts to reach out to her, even harassing her acquaintances. In his harassment, he assumed the role of her boyfriend, lamenting that his girlfriend was sulking and soliciting others to intervene on his behalf. The unsolicited messages from bewildered friends infuriated Wei Wei. It is said that when one descends to utter depravity, they become invincible. Luo Yong, having discovered her address, repeatedly messaged her, claiming to wait for her downstairs, urging her to come down for a meeting. "Stop this nonsense. I understand you seek to capture my attention this way. I yield. You are indeed special, particularly exasperating. You little imp." Wei Wei retorted, "My phone is dirty. I no longer wish to engage." Theoretically speaking, Luo Yong's level of harassment was utterly trivial, as he could never gain entry into the green scenery garden community. By simply turning off her phone and disconnecting from the internet, she could remain unaffected. Yet, the variable lay in the claypot rice stall at the entrance. Prior to trying it, she was indifferent to the praises echoing in the community group. But after sampling it once, she found herself unable to forget the experience, longing for more. At the peak of her cravings, even her dreams were filled with claypot rice. The most unfortunate aspect was that, due to the overwhelming number of residents in the community eager to indulge, securing a purchasing slot from the agent had become more challenging than acquiring her garments. Had Luo Yong not been stationed outside the neighborhood, she would have undoubtedly ventured out to procure a meal. However, the constant possibility of him apprehending her loomed large. The lengthy queue was daunting. The thought of being ensnared was simply unbearable. Yet, after 2 days of restraint, Wei Wei ultimately could no longer contain her cravings. The primal allure of food is universally acknowledged, akin to the allure of intimacy. It is an innate human trait. With even a single Luo Yong in the vicinity, she would brave 1,000 zombies just to satiate her desires. Thus, on the final day of Xiaolan's stall, Wei Wei hurriedly made her way to catch the last bus. This decision would irrevocably alter the trajectory of her life for decades to come. At the stall, Xiaolan observed the girl before her, whose fashion sense starkly contrasted with those around her, and felt a tumult of emotions. Should she caution this girl about the potential danger she faced? The previous day, Xiaolan meticulously perused Luo Yong's information once more. To her surprise, she uncovered a critical detail. She noted that Luo Yong's mother worked as a live-in nanny at Jinghuading. It was no wonder Xiaolan was beginning to resemble a competent investigator. An instinct stirred within her. She promptly requested special approval from Director In and enlisted Lao Lu's help to delve into Wei Wei's personal information. Upon investigation, it became apparent that her home address coincided with that of Luo Yong's mother's employer. Thus, Wei Wei was indeed the employer of Luo Yong's mother, who was employed as her live-in nanny. The records revealed that Wei Wei was an only child, orphaned, with only a paralyzed grandmother residing with her. A wealthy, unmarried, and solitary young woman without the backing of elder family members was the quintessential target for exploitation. Xiaolan was nearly certain that the relationship between Luo Yong and Wei Wei was not merely a superficial online acquaintance. It was evidently a meticulously crafted trap, a honeypot devised by the duo to ensnare her. Having discerned this connection, Xiaolan contemplated reporting the matter to the authorities. Yet, where was the evidence? Mere documents could not substantiate any claims. Even if it could be shown that the mother and son duo were indeed conspiring against her, it would merely be a moral issue, subject to criticism but not actionable under law. Her police colleagues would not recklessly approach individuals based solely on Xiaolan's analysis, as it would violate protocol. Unless it could be proven that they had engaged in illegal activities to achieve their nefarious ends, Xiaolan was at an impasse. She could not confront Wei Wei directly with the information, laying bare the dangers posed by Luo Yong. Such an approach would likely result in Wei Wei turning the tables and alerting the authorities against her. After all, compared to Luo Yong, who had yet to inflict tangible harm, Xiaolan's possession of detailed information about Wei Wei rendered her a more formidable and suspicious figure. Chapter 148. The Unstoppable Fortunate Double Yoke. Last night, Xiaolan attempted to contact Wei Wei anonymously through a secondary account, but with her fanbase exceeding 1 million, her message was swiftly lost in the vast sea of attention. Truly, she felt utterly powerless. Fortunately, the system remained supportive. After countless refreshes, the Points Redemption Mall has finally revealed some desirable items. The Invincible Lucky Double Yoke Egg description states, double the yoke, double the fortune. Receive a lucky aura for 1 week. Aura effect. Transform misfortune into good fortune, avert danger, encounter auspiciousness, turn crises into safety. Side effects. 1 egg, double yolks. 1 fart, double sounds. Simultaneously gain a double sound fart aura for 1 month. It remains a somewhat dubious system item. However, considering its ability to safeguard one's life for a week, the side effects seem trivial. After all, it's merely a matter of letting out double farts. One can simply stay indoors. The cost, however, is rather steep at 5,000 points. Nonetheless, life is invaluable, so the expense is justifiable. The Guaranteed Bullet Magnet Macadamia Nut is being sold for 3,000 points, making the Lucky Double Yolk Egg seem far more reliable. As he prepared the egg, Xiaolan felt a pang of regret, yet he feigned nonchalance, exclaiming, "Wow, it's actually a double yolk. You're incredibly lucky." He had heard that consuming a double yolk egg would bring good fortune, urging Wei Wei to eat this one first. All right, Wei Wei nodded, purchasing 2 servings of clay pot rice, both for herself, knowing it didn't matter which she consumed first. As for her grandmother's meals, adhering to the nutritionist's prescribed diet was paramount, so it was best not to offer her anything else. Carrying the 2 servings of clay pot rice, Wei Wei felt fortunate to have avoided encountering Luo Yong. Little did she know that she had spent just over 100 yuan to acquire an egg worth a staggering 5,000 points. With the invincible Lucky Double Yolk Egg in hand, she could at least afford Xiaolan a week's time to gather evidence. If, within that week, Luo Yong couldn't contain himself and inadvertently revealed his true nature, it would be even better. Meanwhile, Wei Wei hurriedly dashed into the community, believing this was the only way to evade Luo Yong's relentless pursuit. However, perhaps it was merely an illusion, but she thought she spotted a figure resembling Luo Yong within the community. Surely, it must be a trick of the mind. The security at Greenview Garden is stringent. One can only enter or exit through facial recognition or an exclusive access card. Surely, Luo Yong would not be able to gain entry. Shaking her head, she let out a bitter smile. What an extroverted experience that had resulted in a lifetime of introversion. After being entangled for 4 days, it had nearly morphed into a nightmare. Upon returning home, Wei Wei discovered the door ajar, eliciting a sharp gasp from her. She rushed inside, disregarding her shoes, immediately searching for her 3 cats. Bigme, Airme, Xiaomi, where are you? The home was spacious, comprising 4 rooms and 2 living areas. As she called out the names of her cats, during her search, she noticed a door suddenly move. She hurried over and turned the doorknob. The door opened, pushed from the inside. The housekeeper, Zhang Ma, emerged with a nervous expression. Ignoring her unusual demeanor, Wei Wei, both anxious and angry, exclaimed, "Zhang Ma, why didn't you close the door properly again? Last time, because you left it open, Big Me ran away and was only returned by someone from the community. Oh dear. Let us not dwell on that. Help me find them quickly. Are the three of them here, or have they wandered off?" Zhang Ma nodded with hesitation. All right. The two parted ways in search, and soon discovered the trio curled up beneath the desk in the study, resembling three fluffy marshmallows. Wei Wei exhaled a heavy sigh of relief. Thank goodness you didn't escape. Honestly, you're usually in the living room. How did you end up hiding here? You nearly gave me a heart attack. Having confirmed that her three precious companions were safe, Wei Wei finally removed her shoes at the door and slipped into her slippers. She then instructed the robotic vacuum to clean the dirt she had tracked in, followed by a thorough disinfection. While she herself did not possess a cleanliness obsession, those who love and care for cats tend to be particularly mindful of such details, ensuring that no external germs are brought into their home. It was precisely for this reason that Wei Wei could assert with absolute certainty that she had not forgotten to close the door when she left. After a previous incident of a lost cat, she had made it a point to check the door at least 3 times, ensuring it was securely locked before feeling at ease to venture out. Zhang Ma stood beside her with a contrite expression, apologizing to Wei Wei. "I'm sorry. It was not my intention. I will remember to close the door next time." Initially, Wei Wei had intended to express her frustration, but seeing Zhang Ma's demeanor softened her resolve, leaving her with a tinge of guilt. "Zhang Ma, I apologize for my harsh tone earlier. You know how much they mean to me. They are like my children. Losing them feels no different than losing my own flesh and blood. Please be more attentive in the future." "Of course, I will be more careful," Zhang Ma assured her. The matter was soon put behind them. Although Wei Wei still harbored some displeasure, she refrained from voicing any further harsh words, fearing it might upset Zhang Ma. After all, Zhang Ma was the most satisfactory live-in maid she had ever hired, having worked in her household for 3 years. When a maid reaches a certain level of excellence, even the employer must tread lightly, concerned that she might resign one day. The primary responsibility of the live-in maid was to care for Wei Wei's paralyzed grandmother, providing massages, hygiene assistance, and monitoring her health. As for other household chores, the live-in maid was not obligated to perform them. Wei Wei's home was equipped with smart technology throughout. The robotic vacuum handled cleaning, while a washer-dryer combo took care of laundry, and a specialized team of nutritionists managed meal preparations. In theory, the role of a live-in maid was not particularly challenging. With dedication, many could easily handle the work. However, Zhang Ma was the most satisfactory of the dozens of maids Wei Wei had employed over the years. In the initial 2 years of caring for her grandmother, Wei Wei had witnessed the darker sides of human nature through her experiences in hiring maids. Many began their roles with great enthusiasm, genuinely caring for her grandmother. Yet, after some time, upon realizing the elderly woman could not speak, and that Wei Wei often retreated to the study to paint, being a soft-spoken young lady, they began to grow restless. The cameras recorded their negligence, even instances of mistreatment towards her grandmother, which left Wei Wei trembling with anger. Some even harbored ill intentions, conspiring with outsiders to steal from her home. Fortunately, Wei Wei's household was devoid of any valuables, as all assets were entrusted to professionals for management, thus incurring minimal losses. Nevertheless, the initial 2 years of her independent life were fraught with challenges. The darker facets of human nature manifested starkly before a vulnerable young woman. Wei Wei's current social anxiety and aversion to interpersonal interactions can be traced back to these experiences. However, in her 3rd year, she crossed paths with Zhang Ma. Although Zhang Ma was not the most adept or efficient worker, she possessed a commendable sense of integrity, honesty, and patience. Her willingness to learn, coupled with a sincere approach devoid of ulterior motives, enabled her to excel in her role. After a year of adjustment, Zhang Ma became the most cherished caregiver for both Wei Wei and her grandmother, receiving a salary that consistently exceeded market rates. The rapport between Wei Wei and Zhang Ma was harmonious. Despite Wei Wei's reserved nature, she greeted Zhang Ma with a smile, treating her almost as a friend. What distinguished Zhang Ma was her unwavering adherence to professional boundaries, remaining diligent and humble, even in the warmth of their relationship. Over the years, their interactions had been largely devoid of conflict. However, recently, Zhang Ma committed a couple of actions that mildly displeased Wei Wei. 3 incidents, counting today's occurrence. The first was a light-hearted jest from Zhang Ma about introducing her son to Wei Wei as a potential suitor. Upon Wei Wei expressing her disinterest in dating, Zhang Ma promptly ceased the conversation, leaving Wei Wei merely feeling discomfort rather than anger. The second incident involved Zhang Ma forgetting to close the door, resulting in the loss of one of Wei Wei's cats. For Wei Wei, her cats were not mere pets. They were the embodiment of her emotional sustenance. In the event of her grandmother's passing, these cats would be her last remaining family. Consequently, when the cat went missing, Wei Wei was overwhelmed with anxiety and could not restrain her ire towards Zhang Ma. Fortunately, the cat was discovered by a kind-hearted individual and returned unharmed. Given that many residents in the neighborhood owned dogs, had the cat encountered one, the outcome could have been devastating. With the cat safely returned, The incident was put behind them, especially since Zhang Ma had consistently performed well in caring for Wei Wei's grandmother. As such, Wei Wei had never contemplated assigning blame or terminating her employment. The third incident, which occurred just now, involved Zhang Ma forgetting to close the door once more. Thankfully, it did not lead to any significant mishap. Wei Wei felt a sense of helplessness. To express anger over such a trivial matter seemed excessive, akin to being overly meticulous. Yet, withholding her frustration was equally unsettling, given the potential ramifications of such seemingly minor oversights. Those indifferent to the emotions surrounding pets might struggle to comprehend Wei Wei's heightened concern. However, when viewed through a financial lens, the sentiment becomes clearer. The least expensive of her 3 cats was acquired for 30,000 yuan, and the grooming products she used for them were priced at over 1,000 yuan per bottle. 3 daily meals consist of a melange of raw bones from beef, lamb, goose, and venison, accompanied by periodic health checkups costing several thousand yuan. She truly nurtures her cat as if it were her own child, demonstrating a level of meticulous care that surpasses that of many parents. After years of such devoted upbringing, the cat's value has escalated far beyond its initial purchase price, soaring in worth with each passing moment. Presently, each feline companion is valued at no less than 100,000 yuan. Losing one equates to a significant financial loss. With this perspective, the gravity of keeping the door closed becomes apparent, does it not? Nevertheless, Zhang Ma is a reliable person, and it is unlikely there will be a repeat of such an incident. Wei Wei has grown weary of searching for another housekeeper. Someone like Zhang Ma is a rare find, so perhaps she should exercise a bit more tolerance. Having reached this conclusion, Wei Wei retreated to the kitchen to savor her clay pot rice, for a meal must be enjoyed while warm to truly appreciate its flavors. Unbeknownst to her, upon her departure, the sound of conversation filled Zhang Ma's room. Next time, remember to close the door. That girl is usually quite amiable, but when it comes to her cat, she explodes like a firecracker. Don't make me lose my job. A man's derisive snort followed. Please, she wouldn't dismiss you. I've told you before. Girls like her are quite soft-hearted. You need to stand firm in her presence. The firmer you are, the more she will yield. These little creatures consume so much every day, and it's such a high cost. What's the harm in disposing of them? I'm merely helping her save money. When we marry, I will definitely insist she gets rid of those cats. One cannot be so extravagant in life. As they conversed, the sounds of dishes being cleared from the kitchen interrupted their dialogue. Abruptly, the man refrained from voicing his more malevolent thoughts. That old woman is also wasting money. Once we are married, I will never allow her to continue spending my money. In the kitchen, Wei Wei finished her serving of clay pot rice, still desiring more. But her appetite was abruptly halted by a burp rising in her throat. Perhaps it would be wise to save the second portion for later. Oh dear, she was stuffed. After placing the remaining dish into the refrigerator, Wei Wei returned to her study. While it is referred to as a study, it would be more aptly named a computer room. This is her workspace where she conducts her professional duties and indulges in entertainment. She spends the majority of her time here, followed by her bedroom for sleep, and then her grandmother's room. At this hour, her grandmother was taking her afternoon rest. So Wei Wei chose not to disturb her and reclined in her ergonomic chair to engage with her computer. Since amassing a considerable following on both her main and secondary accounts, she seldom checks her direct messages, as they often overflow with 999 notifications daily. Curiously, however, after her claypot rice, she felt a sudden urge to peruse her messages. Selecting a few fortunate fans to reply to, she stumbled upon a rather peculiar message. Rather than expressing admiration, it read, "Beware of your housekeeper and her son, Luo Yong." Initially bewildered, Wei Wei soon found herself gripped by an unsettling sense of dread. The study was suffused with warmth, the floor radiating heat, yet in that fleeting moment, she felt an icy chill pierce through her. She could distinctly sense the hairs on the back of her neck rising one by one. Was Luo Yong the son of the housekeeper? There was no time to ponder who had sent her the private message or why they knew about the relationship between the housekeeper and Luo Yong. Her mind raced, rapidly revisiting fragments from the past few months, disjointed yet peculiar memories that she had previously overlooked. Like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, these irregular images began to coalesce into a coherent narrative. The housekeeper had jokingly attempted to introduce her son to her, but she had declined. Subsequently, she had met Luo Yong online, a kindred spirit whose interests and passions mirrored her own. He seemed to intuitively grasp her likes and dislikes, often articulating thoughts that made her feel as though she had found a soulmate. This allure prompted her to take the initiative to add him as a friend and seek a connection. In chapter 149, the darker aspects of human nature were starkly revealed. At times, she felt as though she had encountered another version of herself, as if they were twin souls bound by an unspoken understanding. Now, reflecting upon it, was it possible that he had been meticulously crafted as a persona modeled entirely after her? The only person capable of knowing her so intimately was the ever-present housekeeper, Zhang Ma. Upon further contemplation, were there truly no signs within her life? Their cat had been acting strangely of late, seemingly spooked and often hiding in corners. After undergoing a comprehensive health examination, no physical ailments were discovered. Even her grandmother appeared to be in a melancholic state, sometimes exhibiting a sorrowful or even terrified gaze. Yet they could not communicate effectively. Medical consultations deemed it merely a normal emotional fluctuation. Was it genuinely just that? Indeed, Wei Wei's home was equipped with surveillance cameras, multiple in number. Aside from the bathroom, nearly every room had been under scrutiny. However, due to Zhang Ma's diligent care over the past 3 years, there had been little cause for concern, rendering the cameras almost superfluous. Who among the prudent would routinely check the footage without reason? Moreover, considering Zhang Ma frequently assisted her grandmother with personal care, bathing, changing diapers, and dressing, respect for privacy necessitated that the cameras be turned off during those times. Occasionally, they would be forgotten, left off when no one was monitoring, fading from memory. Later, she stumbled upon news reports revealing how certain perverts could hack into home surveillance systems, and unscrupulous vendors would sell users cloud monitoring accounts. Sometimes, even when users turned off the cameras, hackers could remotely reactivate them, surreptitiously recording private moments. In a household predominantly comprised of women, there were instances of less stringent decorum, like emerging wrapped in a towel after a shower, inadvertently exposing oneself. They believed drawing the curtains would suffice, yet perhaps on the other side of the lens lurked a voyeur reveling in the spectacle. It was entirely conceivable that a live stream had been set up, allowing thousands of deviants to watch, comment, and fantasize, which sent a shiver down her spine. The most prudent course of action is to simply unplug the device. Thus, the hacker can exert no control. However, once unplugged, it becomes all the more likely to be forgotten and left disconnected. Consequently, when Wei Wei encountered peculiar occurrences and sought to review the surveillance footage, she discovered that the cameras were covered in dust, entirely devoid of power. Upon re-establishing the connection, she would occasionally remember to check, only to find the cameras unplugged once more. When she inquired with Zhang Ma, the latter always provided plausible justifications. She had unplugged it while cleaning, or perhaps she had disconnected it to charge her phone. Sometimes, she simply felt too lazy to change clothes in the bathroom, opting instead to turn off the surveillance to do so. Keeping it plugged in wastes electricity, especially when no one is watching, she would assert. Such explanations, accompanied by Zhang Ma's earnest and unassuming demeanor, elicited no suspicion whatsoever. Moreover, in this era of digital wallets, cash is virtually non-existent in households. Young people no longer collect antiques, and investing can be done through digital gold, negating the need for physical gold bars. With no valuable possessions at home, the surveillance seemed superfluous. Ultimately, the crux of the matter is that Wei Wei had been negligent. Her trust in Zhang Ma was so profound that she overlooked a fundamental truth: people are not immutable. Not to mention, even in employment, relationships can falter over financial matters. As the poet lamented, if only life were as it was at first sight, why lament the autumn wind that mourns the painted fan? 3 years prior, Zhang Ma was indeed a diligent and honest woman, devoted to sustaining her well-paying job for the sake of her family. However, over these years, her financial situation had improved. Her status had solidified, and she had witnessed the true nature of wealth and abundance. Could she truly remain devoid of greed? Before she introduced her son to Wei Wei, she must have envisioned countless moments wherein she could claim this house and all of Wei Wei's assets as her own. In that eventuality, the roles would be reversed. She would no longer be a mere maid, but rather a mother-in-law, presiding over her daughter-in-law. She and her son would not just be entering a wealthy household, but at the very least, stepping into the middle class, achieving a remarkable turnaround in their lives. Wei Wei should have been alerted at that time and dismissed her immediately, rather than allowing her presence to foster Zhang Ma's avarice, permitting her to continually test Wei Wei's limits and tolerance. Unbeknownst to her, Wei Wei found herself seated before her computer for half an hour, lost in thought. Finally, her gaze hardened with resolve. Regardless of the veracity of the contents of that private message, Zhang Ma could no longer remain in her employ. The relationship must revert to its most fundamental form, one party providing payment, the other offering labor. I shall not indulge in your fantasies, nor will you manipulate me. That is the most fitting arrangement. Having reached this conclusion, Wei Wei contacted the domestic service agency once more, requesting assistance in locating a new live-in maid, to arrive no later than the following day, even offering additional compensation. Subsequently, she meticulously composed her words on the keyboard, rehearsing them silently several times before summoning Zhang Ma. Alas, one who is not eloquent must prepare their speech in advance. Zhang Ma, I sincerely appreciate your dedicated care of my grandmother over these years. As Zhang Ma merely revealed a smile and had yet to respond, Wei Wei continued with her discourse. However, I have resolved to accept fewer assignments in the future and personally attend to my grandmother, thus you need not trouble yourself with her care any longer. Here is your salary for this month. I have included an extra day to complete the full month's pay. Furthermore, due to your commendable performance over the years, I have also provided you with an additional 3 months' wages. I trust this sum will facilitate a smooth transition to your next employment. Wei Wei, despite her resolute demeanor, exhibited a hint of compassion. Her relationship with the caregiver was one of employment, not labor, necessitating only the settlement of wages, without any obligation for compensation. Moreover, Zhang Ma had long since shed the initial hardships of her employment. Over the years, she had received a generous salary, residing and dining within Wei Wei's household. Her earnings, unspent, surely amassed some savings. ensuring she would not find herself destitute upon departure. Periodically, she would bring home uneaten steaks, lobsters, bird's nest soup, and imported fruits from Wei Wei's table, a practice Wei Wei tacitly endorsed. It could be said that throughout these years, Wei Wei had treated her well, even excessively so. Yet, she still offered an additional 3 months of compensation, essentially settling accounts for the diligent and earnest Zhang Ma of the past, as well as for the modest bond they had formed. I have arranged for a car for you. Once you gather your belongings, you may return to your son's home. Please ensure you do not leave behind any clothing or luggage, and hand me your access card before you depart. Should anything be forgotten, I will have no choice but to send it to you via courier. Wei Wei endeavored to convey her words with a veneer of cold detachment. Yet her gentle tone rendered them far less formidable. Until she had concluded her entire speech, Zhang Ma maintained an air of calmness, seemingly convinced that a simple plea or display of sorrow would inevitably restore her position. However, who could have anticipated that regardless of what Zhang Ma uttered, Wei Wei would respond with an expression of genuine emotion, only to resolutely shake her head? As the refusals mounted, Zhang Ma began to panic. She gradually perceived that Wei Wei was not merely testing her resolve or whimsically sulking. She was truly determined. Wei Wei's emotions were sincere, yet her refusals were equally so. Once she set a goal, she would pursue it relentlessly. She understood that the journey would involve moments of doubt and hesitation, yet she would strive to overcome such uncertainties. Thus, at this juncture, Zhang Ma's words held no weight. Even if she were to move Wei Wei to tears, ultimately, Wei Wei would dry her eyes and urge her to hasten her packing, for the car was on its way. In the end, Zhang Ma succumbed, wiping her tears and turning to gather her possessions. In that fleeting moment of turning away, her previously honest visage contorted into one of twisted hatred and madness. Not every honest person is a paragon of virtue. Often, individuals are bound by their circumstances and limitations, compelled to adhere to a life of rectitude and restraint. Yet, once such individuals catch a whiff of an opportunity for dishonesty, their hearts awaken, and their greed, accompanied by ambition, begins to swell. There is a saying that once a man acquires wealth, he becomes corrupted. The statement is not entirely accurate, nor is it entirely incorrect. A woman, once endowed with wealth, may also succumb to moral degradation. It is true that anyone, upon acquiring riches, may reveal their true nature and become morally corrupt. Wealth inevitably brings forth countless temptations. When faced with numerous lures and trials, only those who can resist the path of depravity can be deemed genuinely virtuous. The rest are merely compelled to behave decently. Zhang Ma, for instance, exemplifies a person who is forced into honesty, having single-handedly raised her son, fulfilling both maternal and paternal roles, and finding her son lacking ambition. She was left with no choice but to toil earnestly, oblivious to other pursuits. Had she continued her life in such a constrained manner, she might have remained dutifully honest for eternity. However, fortune smiled upon her as she encountered an employer who was both amiable and had minimal demands. In the daily interactions with Wei Wei, who indulged in a lavish lifestyle, Zhang Ma occasionally found herself yearning to spend that money on her own desires. Many might entertain such thoughts, but they remain mere fantasies. A genuinely honest person would suppress these illicit musings with a sense of morality. Instead, she allowed her unwholesome thoughts to flourish like mildew. With newfound affluence, she hired a nanny to care for her son and grandson. In this reversal of roles within the employment dynamic, she experienced the exhilarating sensation of superiority. Gradually, she began to feel elevated, believing that the young woman was too gentle and that the elderly, being incapacitated, were beyond her management. Thus, she felt she had the authority in Wei Wei's household. The more she observed the spacious, desolate house, the more appealing the idea became to have her son and grandson reside there with her, bringing a lively atmosphere. It became unclear whether this notion originated with her or her son. Regardless, their thoughts aligned perfectly. The young woman had no parents, no boyfriend, and no children. She possessed nothing but wealth. You could play her mother, I could be her husband, and our child could be her child, her son proposed. Zhang Ma found this increasingly plausible. It made sense. If she did not mind the woman's age, then the woman should not disdain his poverty. At 25, she is practically an old maid, still enamored with childish whims. Perhaps her intellect is lacking, squandering money without a care. Seeing her slender frame, it's likely she would struggle with motherhood. While you have a ready-made child, and being young and handsome, you would be more than a suitable match for her. The mystery unraveled. It was no wonder Luo Yong exuded such confidence, as he had a mother who genuinely admired him. Thus commenced a bold and ambitious scheme to secure a future with Wei Wei. With the support of his mother, Luo Yong successfully lured Wei Wei online. Yet, despite his mother's insights into Wei Wei's preferences, he still found himself at a disadvantage. Even while engaging in conversation and searching for information, he encountered numerous unfamiliar terms. Consequently, he sought an alternative route, spending money to hire a companion well-versed in the nuances of the virtual world, to assist him in conversing with Wei Wei. After all, women understand women best. Indeed, once the female companion intervened, the bond between them quickly intensified. On a lonely evening, after an impassioned conversation, Wei Wei consented to meet in person. Luo Yong, wearing a lewd grin, deliberately perused their complete chat history. He had already removed his trousers and prepared tissues, only to discover that their discussions revolved around cats, dogs, family backgrounds, future aspirations, anime, the travails of life, and even topics like zombies and mechas, yet there was no mention of anything salacious. Disheartened, Luo Yong donned his trousers and angrily sought out the female companion for a reprimand. Did I not instruct you to send her my majestic eagle image? Why did you not do so? A woman of her age, lonely enough to secretly draw lewd pictures at night, would have been easily swayed by a bird-watching excursion. There was no need for such trivial chatter, not a single word of use. After a tirade of complaints, the true source of his ire was finally revealed in his last remark. How am I to go directly to a hotel after meeting her if you discuss these topics? The female companion responded with a long string of question marks indicating her confusion, followed by an avalanche of exclamation marks expressing her shock. After a pause, she finally typed back, weren't you previously into abstract art? Where are the birds? I thought that the image you sent yesterday was a caterpillar meant to frighten the girl. It was rather disgusting, so I didn't even click on the animated image. Perhaps recalling that the final payment had yet to be settled. He retracted the previous message 3 seconds after sending it. The companion then typed again. Wait, didn't you say you were her best friend? Seeking someone to chat with her and cheer her up? You two are not acquainted? Never met before? Upon realizing that his scheme was unraveling, Luo Yong, concerned that this companion might jeopardize his plans, hastily sent the final payment. This is none of your business. Why ask so many questions? He then changed the password to the chat account, preventing the companion from logging in again. Subsequently, he blacklisted her, deleted her, and left a negative review. Considering the matter resolved, he would now await their meeting, transitioning from online strategies to offline tactics. Throughout the fishing expedition, they initially had no intention of employing illicit methods, merely aiming to maintain a facade of discretion. Chapter 150. What's wrong with getting rid of the cats? I'm saving her money. After all, the intention was to eliminate the problem, not to face imprisonment. However, as the plan progressed smoothly, Luo Yong found himself unable to contain his eagerness. Wishing to visit Wei Wei's home early to inspect their future marital abode, Zhang Ma, being cautious, initially refused, deeming such actions too risky. Yet, Luo Yong persistently pressed his request, and eventually, she acquiesced. Wei Wei worked long hours, often sequestered in her study, providing little cause for concern over her emergence. Even if she did come out, with so many rooms available, it would be easy to hide. However, unexpectedly, Luo Yong's inaugural visit ended in disaster. In his negligence to close the door behind him, he startled the household cat, resulting in the loss of one of the felines. Whether his actions were accidental or intentional is open to interpretation. He harbored no fondness for the 3 cats, as his mother had mentioned that they consumed more than the average person, incurring significant monthly expenses. In his mind, that expenditure was already a shared asset between him and Wei Wei. Without the cat, it is akin to the absence of a 4-legged golden beast, resulting in considerable savings. However, on that particular occasion, Wei Wei, who typically possesses a gentle temperament, erupted in an unprecedented fury. I had never witnessed her so incensed before. The prospect of the cat remaining lost led Zhang Ma to even speculate that Wei Wei might be enraged enough to dismiss her. This incident did not instill a sense of crisis in the two of them, compelling them to behave with humility. Instead, it illuminated the realization that their employment was not as stable as it had seemed. The employer-employee relationship was inherently fragile. To avoid reverting to their previous state, it became imperative to secure her through the bond of marriage. Luo Yong, audacious and reckless, conceived a more radical plan. From experience, the most effective way to win over a woman is to seize the moment when she is vulnerable. What constitutes vulnerability? Clearly, it is during times of solitude and sorrow. His previous wife had left home due to a conflict with her family's preference for sons, seeking work elsewhere. In her most destitute and helpless state, Luo Yong had managed to win her over with a few barbecues, employing both charm and deceit. Thus, he resolved that before their formal meeting, he must eliminate Wei Wei's grandmother. Following this encounter, Wei Wei would be devastated by the loss of her only remaining family member, rendering her incapable of scrutinizing Luo Yong's demeanor and qualities, instead relying on him as a pillar of support. Causing the demise of a paralyzed individual who could neither speak nor move was as effortless as plucking a blade of grass. Greed ignited malevolent thoughts. During his second visit, Luo Yong pressed a pillow against the elderly man's terrified face, covering it for an extended duration. Given the man's paralysis, there was no struggle. Yet Luo Yong could not ascertain whether he had succumbed. It was only when Zhang Ma entered and gasped at his actions that the commotion reached Wei Wei, who was working, prompting her to set down her brush and investigate, forcing Luo Yong to hide in the wardrobe. He had believed he had succeeded this time. Yet he was unaware that the pillow on the old man's bed was not an ordinary cotton pillow, but rather a hollow latex one. The outer layer was merely a pillowcase, while the inner core was riddled with large holes, allowing air to circulate freely. To suffocate someone with such a pillow would require an interminable duration. Fortunately, the grandmother could neither speak nor write. Otherwise, he would undoubtedly be condemned for deliberate murder. Following this reckless endeavor, he refrained from repeating the same method. His mother chastised him for his impulsiveness. The room was filled with surveillance cameras, although typically turned off. That young lady occasionally activated them. Should the cameras be operational today, it would spell disaster. Moreover, it seemed that Wei Wei had sensed something amiss in her grandmother's gaze and had indeed checked the surveillance footage, failing to uncover anything. She was reluctantly forced to cease her inquiry, yet the seeds of suspicion had been sown. Son, let us proceed with caution and patience. We aspire to lead a good life and cannot afford to be imprisoned. Focus on preparing for your meeting with her and exercise patience. The old man does not have many years left. There is no need to rush. Luo Yong heeded his mother's suggestion. Yet he remained resolute in his intent to eliminate Wei Wei's grandmother. This old woman was an exorbitant drain on his finances. Every moment she lingered was a theft from his future marital assets. He procured a packet of fine white granules and handed it to Zhang Ma. From now on, mix this into her water daily and feed it to the old hag. She has endured for 5 years without passing, and every second spent alive is a financial burden. Let us hasten her departure. Zhang Ma was taken aback, her face drained of color, her hands trembling as she clutched the package. Where did you get this? Is it poisonous? I dare not touch it. However, William laughed, exuding an air of smugness and self-satisfaction. Mother, what are you afraid of? This substance is not toxic. It is merely sugar. He dipped his finger into the packet and tasted it. See, just ordinary sugar. While it is harmless, it does elevate blood sugar levels dramatically. For the elderly and pregnant women, consuming several bowls of sugar water daily can lead to high blood sugar and diabetes. Eventually, a cascade of complications and inflammations ensues, and her frail body will not withstand it. Sooner or later, she will depart, and no one will suspect foul play. Leung's understanding of this matter was largely owing to his unfortunate ex-wife. During her pregnancy, he had treated her carelessly. While he provided ample rice and steamed buns, there was no meat to be had. Their daily meals rarely exceeded 10 yuan. His ex-wife subsisted on buns, rice, and congee accompanied by pickled vegetables, and eventually, she fainted. Initially thought to be due to malnutrition, a hospital visit revealed that her blood sugar was dangerously high. After being chastised by the doctor, they learned that rice, buns, and congee are laden with starch, which is a form of sugar. Although these foods are not sweet, consuming them is akin to ingesting sugar. In moderation, these carbohydrates can be nutritious, but excessive consumption can be as harmful as poison. For someone like his ex-wife, who consumed rice and buns at nearly every meal, it was inevitable that her blood sugar would spike. Should the situation worsen, it could lead to gestational diabetes, posing risks of fetal deformities and the potential loss of both mother and child. Little did his ex-wife realize that her suffering would become a tool for Jung to harm another. The potency of sugar surpasses that of rice and buns, as the latter must undergo a gradual conversion into sugar within the body. Sugar, however, exerts its effects immediately upon ingestion. In times of scarcity, a bowl of sugar water can restore a person from the brink of death. In an age of abundance, consuming a bowl of sugar water after a satisfying meal merely accelerates one's demise. Zhang Ma accepted the bag of sugar and embarked on her routine of chronic poisoning. The results were striking. The old woman began to feel lethargic, perpetually thirsty. Increased water intake led to frequent urination, and though the diapers were changed every 2 hours, they remained perpetually damp. In the depths of winter, donning wet trousers for an extended period may soon lead to the afflictions of eczema and inflammation. Once the elderly begin to succumb to illness, it invariably strikes with overwhelming force. The plans had been progressing smoothly, and the dawn of hope seemed within reach. Yet, unforeseen calamities began to unfold in rapid succession. First, there was a mishap during the initial meeting between my son and Wei Wei. According to him, their conversation was delightful, and he had even envisioned the venue for their wedding. However, it appeared that Wei Wei's mental faculties were in question, as she subsequently blocked and deleted him from all communications. Regardless of his entreaties, she remained unresponsive, citing their incompatibility and a lack of shared values. Then today, without any forewarning, Wei Wei abruptly decided to dismiss her. Zhang Ma, feeling a surge of anxiety, worried whether Wei Wei had discovered something. Surely, it could not be merely a matter of forgetting to close a door that would evoke such a resolute reaction. Concerned about potentially compromising evidence falling into her hands, Zhang Ma refrained from voicing her thoughts and quietly retreated to pack her belongings. Inside her room, Luo Yong was engrossed in his phone. This marked Luo Yong's third clandestine entry into Wei Wei's abode, and, as before, he had failed to close the door behind him. Upon hearing of Zhang Ma's dismissal, he threw down his phone in a fit of rage, ready to confront Wei Wei. Zhang Ma quickly intervened, urging him not to act impulsively. You came here to seek a chance to mend your relationship, did you not? With my job now lost, you are my sole hope. You must not jeopardize our connection. Once the deed is done, and you ensure a divorce that secures half of the assets, revealing our ties can wait. Besides, we might inadvertently expose ourselves, risking her discovery of any incriminating evidence. It's wiser to avoid a confrontation for now. Zhang Ma, possessing a keen mind, understood the importance of caution, yet her son, lacking such insight, was less convinced. What evidence could there possibly be? You turned off the cameras, and that old man can't speak. You're providing him with sugar and nutritional supplements. Even if discovered, it could easily be framed as an act of kindness. Luo Yong's frustration escalated. That wretched woman embodies the common affliction of the wealthy, arrogance that belittles us common folk. A woman like that would soon become compliant after a few encounters. Zhang Ma attempted to interject, but he cut her off. Enough, mother. You're overthinking it and hesitating unnecessarily. In hindsight, I should have taken her on the first visit. With the time spent chatting online, I could have already gotten her pregnant. Zhang Ma hesitated, torn by her son's words. Clearly, their previous strategy of subtly luring her was a complete failure. Perhaps her son's blunt approach was indeed the most effective. That son of mine, I've booked a cab, and I'm about to leave. Do you wish to stay? Zhang Ma asked, her eyes flickering with uncertainty, almost inquiring whether he intended to act upon her tonight. Luo Yong unmistakably grasped her implication, grinning with an air of lewdness. What other reason would I have come here? Zhang Ma felt a surge of trepidation. What if, just what if, she calls the police? Luo Yong scoffed disdainfully. In the dead of night, shrouded in darkness, if I don a mask and blindfold her, who will know my identity? Once I have degraded her to a mere plaything, rendering her unable to detach from men, I shall assume the guise of a caring admirer online, reassuring her that I am unperturbed by her past and wish to cherish her for a lifetime. I refuse to believe she can maintain her pretentious airs and disregard me. Zhang Ma fell silent, seemingly convinced of her son's plan's viability. Young women often cherish their virtue and are frequently too intimidated to report grievances. Even if a report is made, as long as evidence is obliterated and faces remain unseen, the matter typically fades into obscurity. The sole concern lies with the multitude of surveillance cameras. It is imperative that we remain unseen. Thus, Zhang Ma retrieved her mobile device, divulging the full account details for the smart home management system of Wei Wei's residence to Luo Yong. By logging into this application, one could manipulate all household appliances, including the cameras. Cameras without visible buttons are powered off and disconnected, while gray buttons indicate they are plugged in but deactivated. A green button signifies that surveillance is operational. And the same applies to other devices. The girl's phone is also logged into this software, allowing her to discreetly activate the monitoring system at times. Prior to any actions, one must check this application to ensure all cameras are disabled. Being recorded could result in automatic backups to the account's storage, rendering even the removal of memory cards futile. Luo Yong paid scant attention to Zhang Ma's repeated warnings, merely affirming his understanding. Outside, Wei Wei's voice beckoned, urging, Zhang Ma, have you finished packing? Do you need my assistance? The car is waiting outside the community. Zhang Ma ground her teeth in irritation. That little wretch is hurrying me. Son, quickly hide away and be careful not to reveal yourself. With that, Zhang Ma resumed her facade of pitiable innocence, responding outwardly. Almost done, I'll be right out. Zhang Ma's belongings were few. She typically consumed and utilized what was provided by Wei Wei, frequently bringing items from Wei Wei's home to supplement her son's household. It was a feat to not completely deplete Wei Wei's resources. Thus, as she packed, the only items truly belonging to her were clothing, shoes, and personal toiletries, most of which were purchased by Wei Wei with the explicit intent of gifting them to her. As she stepped outside with her luggage, Zhang Ma attempted to feign vulnerability in hopes of rekindling Wei Wei's affections, yet it proved futile. Wei Wei's heart, although tender and pliable, could also harden like iron when necessary. After closing the car door, Zhang Ma's expression transformed. The pretense was shed, revealing her acerbic demeanor. Once you marry my son, just wait and see how I will torment you. The once subservient figure, subdued for decades, resembled a tightly coiled spring, once released. The force of its rebound could be formidable. After bidding farewell to Zhang Ma, Wei Wei made her way directly to her grandmother's room. With a sense of trepidation, she disclosed the dismissal of Zhang Ma, anxious that her grandmother might be displeased, particularly considering Zhang Ma had cared for her for so many years. To her surprise, as soon as she finished speaking, her grandmother's eyes sparkled with joy, only to be quickly followed by tears of emotion. Chapter 151. Practicing the Sunflower Sutra late at night, this left Wei Wei in a state of utter confusion. She could not discern whether her grandmother was filled with joy or sorrow, relief or reluctance. All she could do was offer her comfort, assuring her, Grandma, my career is now stable, and I have learned the nursing skills through observation. From now on, I shall take primary responsibility for your care. A new caregiver will arrive tomorrow to assist me. If she does not meet our needs, we shall find someone more suitable. Tears glistened in her grandmother's eyes as she blinked heavily, and Wei Wei understood her message clearly. All right. The room was filled with the warm atmosphere cultivated by the bond between the grandmother and granddaughter. In stark contrast, just a wall away, another room was shrouded in malevolence. Luo Yong lay beneath the bed, activating his phone to view the surveillance, witnessing the tender scene next door and overhearing Wei Wei's words to her grandmother. Humph. The little wretch has even arranged for a new caregiver to come tomorrow. Fortunately, I overheard that. I shall cancel my plans tonight. No one will come to rescue you. Soon, night fell. After finishing another serving of clay pot rice, Wei Wei watched a variety show with her grandmother before heading for a shower, preparing for bed. During her bath, Luo Yong stealthily emerged from beneath Zhang Ma's bed and crept into Wei Wei's wardrobe. The anticipation of the night's events made him unable to suppress a sinister grin that spread from ear to ear. Lying on her bed, Wei Wei absent-mindedly petted her cat while playing on her phone. Unbeknownst to her, the three cats, sensing the presence of a stranger, were restless and agitated, while she remained completely unguarded and oblivious to the impending danger. To avoid drawing the neighbors' attention, Luo Yong planned to wait until Wei Wei fell asleep before making his move. However, he was already becoming increasingly excited. Unable to contain himself, he decided to practice in advance. In the dimly lit wardrobe, he fumbled for the zipper of his pants, quietly tugging it down. It wouldn't budge. For some inexplicable reason, the usually smooth zipper was suddenly stuck. Fortunately, he was not in urgent need of the restroom. Otherwise, he would have been in quite a predicament. Thankfully, this was merely a rehearsal. Had he discovered the obstruction during the actual event, it would have been quite embarrassing. Frustrated, Luo Yong pulled harder on the zipper. Finally, with a violent rip, it gave way. Accompanying this was an excruciating pain that almost made him faint. Darkness enveloped his vision for 3 seconds before he let out a scream akin to that of a slaughtered pig. The piercing wail resonated throughout the entire room, startling Wei Wei. In the next moment, a figure stumbled out from the wardrobe, accompanied by a nauseating scent of blood. What on earth? Wei Wei gasped, nearly dropping her phone. What had transpired? Luo Yong was equally bewildered. He had no idea when the zipper had caught his flesh. When he yanked it, it peeled away like the skin of a banana. It was brutal, far more so than any punishment in the depths of hell. He felt he had been harsher on himself than even the king of hell. He was oblivious to the potential disturbance he might cause to his neighbors as he stumbled out, collapsing onto the ground. Coincidentally, the ground was where the cat, startled by Luo Yong, had leapt from the bed. These 3 felines were large, each weighing nearly 20 pounds, akin to medium-sized dogs. From a distance, they resembled a trio of semi-trucks. Indeed, they were a sight to behold. Although timid by nature, their instincts as felines were unleashed in moments of fright. Thus, as Luo Yong lunged towards the cat on the ground, the 3 hefty creatures sprang into action. It was a moment of awakening, a time for the hunt. With 3 sets of sharp fangs and 12 claws, they frantically clawed, bit, pounced, scratched, tore, tugged, thrashed, and pummeled Luo Yong's head, face, chest, back, abdomen, and groin. Luo Yong screamed in agony, akin to an eel tossed into a boiling pot, writhing and contorting his body in a desperate struggle. One moment he twisted into an S shape, the next into a B shape. Nearby, Wei Wei witnessed this spectacle. After a brief mental lapse, she was jolted into awareness. A man had taken refuge in her bedroom. Unbeknownst to her, what could a stranger be doing hiding in a woman's room in the dead of night? It certainly could not be anything virtuous. She immediately dashed out of her home, shouting for help. Thief! Thief! In truth, her cries were unnecessary, as Luo Yong's earlier screams had already echoed throughout the entire neighborhood. In the corridor, curious neighbors were peeking out. Upon hearing Wei Wei's frantic exclamations, someone promptly dialed the police and alerted the building's security. Just as Wei Wei bolted from her home, she abruptly halted. She remembered her grandmother was still inside, along with the 3 cats. While the cats could find their own hiding spots, her grandmother was immobile. Moreover, in order to care for her grandmother, the door to her room had been left ajar. If that villain were to storm into the room and harm her grandmother, it would be disastrous. Gathering her courage, Wei Wei turned around and sprinted back toward her grandmother's room. As she passed her own doorway, she dared to glance inside. To her astonishment, she witnessed the 3 cats simultaneously delivering powerful kicks to the intruder, sending him soaring. Each kick fortuitously landed in a rather sensitive area. Just as the villain attempted to retaliate, he was incapacitated by the trio of lethal strikes, sapping him of all strength and means. It was akin to being struck by 3 lead balls. The consequences of such folly would inevitably lead to disaster. However, there was a distinction. At least lead balls were not barbed. As the cats struck, their claws extended, inevitably tearing at flesh. The once unblemished skin was now akin to a caramelized dessert. Wei Wei had initially charged in with a determination to fight for her life, but now she sensed that the threat posed by the intruder had diminished. In fact, it seemed he might require her assistance in calling for an ambulance. Nevertheless, she was indifferent to his plight. Her primary concern was that the cats, frightened, might flee out the door and become lost again. Swiftly, she grasped the doorknob with one hand while beckoning the 3 cats with the other. Big me, second me, little me, come here, quickly. Her voice not only captured the attention of the skittish cats, but also prompted Luo Yong, who lay on the ground wailing, to glance up at her. In that fleeting moment, their eyes locked, both filled with rage. It's you. Wei Wei recognized him, and upon seeing Luo Yong's blood-soaked trousers, she was struck with a mixture of shock and revulsion. How could he possibly be here? It was evident now. The anonymous informant was correct. Luo Yong was indeed Zhang Ma's son, and only she could have surreptitiously brought him into the house. Although the specifics of how he had inflicted such injuries upon himself eluded her, it was clear he harbored malicious intent, ultimately harming himself in the process. Luo Yong felt his teeth itch with hatred at Wei Wei's disdainful gaze. This night should have been his moment of joy, a pivotal opportunity to alter his fate. The one writhing in despair and agony should not have been him, but rather that wretched Wei Wei. It's all your fault. If only you had married me obediently, none of this would have happened. It's all your fault. You vile creature. You brought this upon me. May you meet a wretched end. May you and your old man both suffer. Wei Wei was momentarily stunned by his shameless reasoning, rendering her unable to absorb the curses that followed. Even when the cats approached, she forgot to open the door for them. In a frenzy, 3 fluffy balls of cotton fur desperately tried to squeeze through the door's crack. Their backsides stuck outside with their hind legs flailing in the air. It was evident that their rear paws were smeared with blood, none of which belonged to them. Luo Yong, fueled by an inexplicable surge of strength, perhaps born from his fury, struggled to rise, intent on charging at Wei Wei. I will kill you, he screamed. As fear overtook her, Wei Wei cried out while hurriedly beckoning the cats inside. Just as she was about to shut the door, Luo Yong lunged forward, a fierce glint in his eyes, extending his arm to push the door open. Suddenly, he stepped on the blood he had shed, slipping uncontrollably and tumbling forward. Thud! The sound echoed sharply. Could his head really collide with the doorknob with such force? Luo Yong crumpled to the ground in agony, covering his mouth, and moments later, 2 bloodied incisors fell from him. Ah, it was his teeth that had struck. Surely, a head filled with such malice could not produce such a crisp sound. His head buzzed for a long while, and upon regaining his senses, he was utterly bereft of his ferocity and resolve, bursting into tears. How could this happen? Why was everything going awry tonight, as if fate itself conspired against him? If both parties had been equally harmed, he could have found some semblance of balance. Yet, he had not even touched a single hair on Wei Wei's head, and here he was, battered and half dead. Where was the justice in that? The absurdity of his plight only deepened. Suddenly, the corridor's sensor light flickered above him, and moments later, it plummeted towards him. Smack! Bang! Thud! The fixtures of the affluent were indeed solidly constructed, showing no sign of cost-cutting. It must have been made of stainless steel. As it bounced upon hitting the floor and struck him again without cracking, the light landed squarely on his backside, further compressing his waist. The caramelized banana had already endured more than it could bear. Being struck with such force and crashing to the ground was truly a misfortune upon misfortune. In that moment, he rolled his eyes back and fainted. If he could, he would have wished for a longer spell of unconsciousness, as it was in that state that he could escape the agony. However, he awakened swiftly, compelled to do so. The security team and police arrived in quick succession, and in the eyes of the onlookers, he was hoisted away, jolted back to consciousness by the sheer pain. His neighbors, drawn by curiosity, had forsaken sleep. A large crowd, clad in various styles of pajamas, gathered in the biting cold to witness Luo Yong's embarrassing predicament. Some audaciously speculated, what's happening? Practicing the sunflower scripture at this hour? Upon hearing this, Luo Yong recalled the scripture's opening line. To master this skill, one must first undergo castration, and was so incensed that he fainted once more. That night, the incident exploded in the community chat group and among local gossip circles. Initial conjectures varied widely, with many suspecting a romantic squabble, perhaps infidelity on the male's part leading to the female's drastic measures. However, Wei Wei was determined to dissociate herself from such distasteful rumors. She promptly unearthed a segment of surveillance footage and uploaded it to the community group, captioning it, "Let me clarify, we are not a couple. Not a couple. Not a couple. This individual appears to be the son of my former nanny, who stealthily intruded into our home with malicious intent. Thankfully, he was discovered in time, and no one was harmed. I appreciate everyone who assisted in alerting the authorities, and I sincerely apologize for disturbing your sleep." As the community members clicked on the video, they witnessed Luo Yong sneaking into Wei Wei's room, closing the doors and windows, before hiding in her wardrobe. Before long, he inexplicably burst out, accompanied by a 10-minute display of being struck by various objects, a cat, the door, and a light fixture. How did Wei Wei possess this footage? Just before Luo Yong's nefarious act, he had deliberately turned off all the cameras in the house, feeling secure enough to venture out. Yet, by sheer coincidence, Wei Wei had remembered about the surveillance just before her shower and casually activated all the cameras with her phone. One should not question the serendipity. It was merely her good fortune that every little action she took unfolded to her advantage. The multiple camera angles captured nearly the entire sequence, akin to a multi-camera film set. The footage provided both the process and the details, leaving no room for doubt. Even if Luo Yong were classified by the hospital as suffering from severe injuries, it could not be argued that Wei Wei had acted excessively in self-defense. In fact, by the time she would have initiated any defense, Luo Yong had already inflicted such harm upon himself. What chaos would ensue had she truly defended herself? After reviewing the footage, the officers fell silent. It was difficult to fathom how one could inflict such devastation upon oneself without external interference. Upon investigating the scene, the officers reached a conclusion. This young woman's luck is nothing short of extraordinary. The man harbored sinister intentions, having concealed himself in the wardrobe, fully equipped with ropes, tape, and condoms. Had it not been for a critical malfunction with his zipper at that moment, the police would have been responding to a case of attempted rape. At this moment, Wei Wei was supposed to cooperate with the police investigation. However, she expressed her concerns regarding her paralyzed grandmother being home alone. prompting the police to compassionately take her statement at her residence. Concerning the information you provided, we will verify it after the patient has been stabilized, and we will summon Aunt Zhang for questioning at the police station. There may be instances where your cooperation at the station is required, so please remain attentive to your phone calls. Wei Wei nodded eagerly. All right, I will quickly arrange matters at home. Should you need anything, don't hesitate to call upon me. I truly appreciate your efforts. Before departing, the officers, considering the circumstances at Wei Wei's home, could not help but express their sympathy, advising, if you are feeling frightened, consider inviting relatives or friends to keep you company. Do not shoulder this alone. Although the incident did not yield dire consequences, it would be prudent to schedule an appointment with a psychologist for some counseling to avoid any lingering psychological shadows. One must remain vigilant, yet it is unwise to live in a constant state of high tension. This was an isolated incident, not a reflection of life's norm. Do not succumb to pessimism. Chapter 152. Could it be that she is so fortunate because she ate a double yolk egg? Wei Wei was momentarily stunned but politely replied, okay, thank you. Once the police had left, she could no longer hold back her emotions, and tears streamed from her eyes like a broken faucet. Though she had managed to hold herself together in the absence of concern from others, the moment someone showed her kindness, her defenses crumbled. She had no close relatives nor friends who understood her current plight. Her home was occupied only by her paralyzed grandmother and 3 cats in need of care, leaving her without anyone to confide in. Despite her financial stability, she felt utterly isolated, a member of a vulnerable demographic. It was difficult to fathom the potential consequences had her luck been slightly worse that evening. Yet, after a brief emotional breakdown, she wiped her tears and set about to clean up the aftermath. Her frightened grandmother required reassurance. The 3 cats needed to be checked for injuries. The chaos on the floor needed tidying, and she had to reach out to the family doctor and a new housekeeper. Upon returning to her grandmother's room, Wei Wei thought she heard a sound. Approaching the bedside, she was astonished to find her grandmother, who had been voiceless for 5 years due to a stroke, was attempting to speak. Wei Wei, Wei Wei Wei. Initially overwhelmed with joy, Wei Wei's elation quickly shifted to concern, fearing it might be a fleeting moment of lucidity. She promptly contacted the family doctor, urging them to come quickly. Grandma, I'm here. It's okay now. The bad people have been taken away. The police will get to the bottom of this. I'm unharmed. I'm fine. Please don't be afraid. With her soothing words, the fear in her grandmother's eyes diminished significantly, though she still occasionally muttered incoherently. Wei Wei strained to listen, but the words were unclear, so she decided to record a video for later analysis. Shortly thereafter, the doctor arrived and conducted a brief examination of her grandmother, providing Wei Wei with reassurance. Generally, her grandmother's condition appeared stable. Her blood pressure and heart rate had normalized, though her blood sugar levels were somewhat elevated. The sudden ability to vocalize may stem from an overwhelming concern for you, triggering a response that restored a fragment of her linguistic capabilities. Generally speaking, if aphasia resulting from a stroke does not improve within a year, regaining language function poses considerable challenges. Should she indeed experience a revival of her speech, it would be nothing short of miraculous, a serendipitous turn of events. Tomorrow, our team will escort her to the hospital for a comprehensive examination, and we shall monitor her throughout the night, so rest assured. Upon hearing the phrase a blessing in disguise from the doctor, Wei Wei felt momentarily disoriented. It seemed her fortune tonight transcended mere luck, surpassing the notion of a fortunate star shining upon her. This celestial guardian appeared to have transformed into her personal bodyguard, attending solely to her needs. Could it be that her parents, in their afterlife, had secured a divine position, enlisting a celestial colleague to watch over Wei Wei? Or perhaps her ancestors were fervently beseeching the king of hell for assistance. Alternatively, she recalled the words of the claypot rice vendor earlier that day. It is said that consuming a double yolk egg invites good fortune. You must try the portion with the double yolk first. Surely, it couldn't be that her good luck stemmed from eating a double yolk egg? Absurd. The thought elicited an involuntary smile from Wei Wei, dispelling some of her earlier panic and allowing her to find her composure. Having settled everything, she reopened her phone and noticed numerous messages in the group chat, where many had tagged her to offer their consolation. Several residents, unable to sleep, were vocally criticizing the property management and security for their negligence. Within a fortnight, 2 incidents of burglary had occurred at Greenview Garden. The first, involving a rather comical thief who was caught before he could act, did not garner much serious attention. The second incident, however, nearly resulted in grave consequences. Regardless of any collusion from caregivers, these events highlighted security vulnerabilities, and the property management must provide an explanation. This incident silenced those residents who had previously advocated against installing too many public cameras. The events proved that safety outweighs privacy concerns. Issues of privacy that could be resolved by merely drawing curtains do not necessitate dismantling surveillance cameras. With the support of numerous homeowners advocating for their rights, the property management felt the pressure and promptly reached out to Wei Wei, promising to visit in a few days for a consultation and compensation. Wei Wei was indifferent to the notion of compensation. However, this occurrence allowed her to appreciate the warmth of community among the residents in her building. Perhaps, despite the distinct boundaries each individual maintained, her environment was not as cold as it seemed. In the future, she might engage more actively in the community chat, fostering familiarity even in the absence of face-to-face interactions. Suddenly, she noticed a new friend request on WeChat. Upon opening it, she found the note from the requester read, "Hello. The person with whom you often chatted late into the night recently is me. A man impersonated your close friend and paid me to keep him company. I suspect his intentions are nefarious." It is difficult to articulate the emotions that flooded Wei Wei upon reading this message. She felt a mix of surprise and a strange sense of confirmation. The person with whom she had been conversing possessed a fascinating soul. In each sleepless night spent clutching a phone, two solitary hearts find solace in one another. It resembles intimate late-night conversations with a dear friend, confiding in a mother, guiding a daughter, and, above all, rescuing one's past self. Regardless of the identity of the person on the other end, be it male, female, or even a dog, they become a confidant. A person like Luo Yong could never feign such authenticity. She promptly accepted the application and initiated a greeting. Before long, the other party, having successfully added her as a friend, sent over the chat history with Luo Yong to validate their identity. "Finally added you. I sent a request from my previous account, but you didn't TC it. It remained unanswered. The more I thought about it, the more worried I became. I used all my skills and finally uncovered your private WeChat ID. I hope this doesn't frighten you. Did you see the chat records, sister? I hope that man hasn't deceived you." Wei Wei replied, "Thank you. I knew from our first meeting that he wasn't you. I decisively blocked him, and I haven't logged into that account again." After a brief pause, Wei Wei added, "In the future, if I seek someone to talk to, can I reach out to you? How is the pricing structured?" As she sent this message, her heart felt both despondent and elated. The despondency stemmed from the fear that all their shared interests and resonant emotions had been purchased. The elation arose from the realization that individuals capable of providing profound emotional value could indeed be compensated. Wei Wei was certain that even if her interlocutor were a woman, even without the allure of romantic attraction, this person remained someone she wished to converse with. This had nothing to do with love. It was purely a matter of spiritual healing. The status on the screen continued to display the other party is typing, and Wei Wei gazed at the string of words, her heart brimming with anticipation. At last, she received a new reply, not a cold, clinical price list, but a lengthy, warm message. "I work at a funeral home, where I often go days without speaking to anyone. I engage in companionship chats out of loneliness, seeking conversation, wishing to experience different roles while earning a little extra. My fees are quite modest. I only earn enough to cover my data expenses, or else that man wouldn't have found me. During our conversations, my genuine emotions far outweigh any pretense. I have been moved to tears countless times while chatting with you, reflecting on my own experiences. That's why I was concerned you might be deceived, and I sought every means to reach you and warn you. If you don't mind that our acquaintance began with a lie, don't mind that I am not the persona I previously portrayed. And don't mind my work being considered inauspicious. You can always reach out to me as you would a friend, as you would a confidant. I won't charge you." The screen blurred before her eyes as tears fell onto her phone, but her vision soon regained clarity. What more could Wei Wei say? She felt as though she had stumbled upon a windfall. Just when she felt the absence of a close friend, here one was. Good fortune seemed to cascade upon her, and she truly believed herself to be extraordinarily lucky, as if she had been bestowed with the privileges of a protagonist in a delightful narrative. She was nearly convinced this was all a dream. A few days later, due to the abundance of surveillance footage and the chat logs provided by the female companion, the police swiftly unraveled the events that transpired. As for the relationship between Zhang Ma and Luo Yong, it was a matter easily clarified through a simple inquiry, leaving no room for denial. The situation was exceedingly clear. The mother and son harbored malicious intent, seeking to ensnare the young woman and eliminate her options, having devised a series of schemes. However, as their plans failed to unfold as expected, they became incensed and resolved to take drastic measures, attempting to forcefully consummate their designs. Yet, as fate would have it, their nefarious efforts backfired. Neither did they succeed in their monetary pursuits, nor did they evade incarceration. This case of breaking and entering with intent to commit rape transformed into a public prosecution. Just as the police were concluding their investigation and summoning Wei Wei to confirm the details, she unexpectedly arrived at the station bearing new evidence, leading to charges of attempted murder against the mother and son. The evidence stemmed from the direct accusations of her grandmother. After escorting her grandmother to the hospital for a comprehensive examination, Wei Wei was pleasantly surprised to discover that her grandmother's speech abilities were gradually recovering. With increasing clarity in her articulation, her grandmother unveiled a shocking revelation. Luo Yong had previously attempted to smother her with a pillow, nearly succeeding. It was revealed that Zhang Ma had been complicit in this malice, feeding her grandmother a daily concoction of half a packet of sugar diluted in water, intending to induce diabetes. No wonder, during one instance, Wei Wei had witnessed her grandmother's terrified expression, realizing that the would-be murderer was lurking in the adjacent wardrobe. It became clear why her grandmother's previously stable blood sugar levels had suddenly skyrocketed, despite multiple dietary adjustments by nutritionists proving futile. The gravity of the case escalated significantly. Should the charges be substantiated, a minimum sentence of 10 years could be imposed, with no upper limit in sight. Zhang Ma, currently detained at the police station, initially hoped to negotiate with Wei Wei, seeking to exchange compensation for a letter of leniency that might mitigate her son's sentence. Now, however, not only had she failed to extricate her son, but she would also face incarceration alongside him. The police promptly initiated further investigations and interrogations, with Wei Wei accompanying several officers to search for evidence at their residence. Upon learning that Wei Wei had arrived by taxi, one officer instructed, "Miss Wei, please wait by the entrance. We will fetch the police vehicle and bring along our forensic colleagues to assist you." "All right," Wei Wei replied. Stepping out of the police station, she spotted a tall man standing at the entrance. She casually glanced up and gasped in surprise.